Omegas are weak. They exist to serve, to submit, to fade into the background of pack life. That's what Lucy Macias had been told her entire life by every alpha who ever looked through her like she was made of glass. But Lucy would learn that when you're born with nothing, you become dangerous in ways the powerful never expect, and sometimes, the most fragile-looking heart is the only thing strong enough to tame monsters. Chapter 1: Shadows in the Basement. The Silvercrest pack didn't hate Lucy Macias. That would have required them to notice her first. She moved through the pack house like a shadow at dawn, present but easily forgotten, necessary but never acknowledged. At 23, Lucy had perfected the art of being invisible. She kept her eyes down when alphas passed in the corridors. She made herself small when betas gathered in the common rooms, their laughter loud, and their presence commanding in ways she would never be. She existed in the margins of pack life, and she had convinced herself that this was enough. It had to be enough. Because Lucy Macias was an Omega, the lowest rank in the werewolf hierarchy, born without the strength of alphas, without the steady reliability of betas, without even the fierce loyalty of gammas. Omegas were rare, but not valued. Delicate, but not protected. They were the pack's afterthought, kept around out of tradition rather than necessity. Lucy's room was in the basement of the pack house, a converted storage space that smelled perpetually of damp stone and old wood. The other Omegas, there were only 3 others in Silvercrest, had similar accommodations. Out of sight, out of mind, the pack provided for them: food, shelter, safety from rogues. In return, Omegas did the work no one else wanted. Lucy cleaned the training rooms after brutal sparring sessions, scrubbed blood from the floors, and washed the pack's laundry until her hands were raw and red. She told herself she didn't mind. She told herself this was her purpose. But late at night, when the pack house finally quieted, and she lay in her narrow bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, Lucy allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to imagine a different life. A life where someone saw her. A life where her name meant something. A life where she wasn't just invisible. This morning began like every other. Lucy woke before dawn, as Omegas were expected to do. She dressed in her usual clothes, a faded gray sweater that had been handed down from someone else, worn jeans that were too big in the waist, scuffed boots that pinched her toes. She braided her long dark hair into a practical plait that hung down her back, and she avoided looking at her reflection in the small cracked mirror above her sink. She knew what she would see: pale skin that never seemed to hold color, dark eyes that were too large for her thin face, a body that was all sharp angles and fragile bones, lacking the curves of other she-wolves, lacking the presence that made people turn and look. Lucy had been called plain so many times it no longer stung. It was simply fact, as unchangeable as the rank she'd been born into. The pack house was still mostly asleep when Lucy climbed the basement stairs and entered the main kitchen. This was her favorite time of day, the brief window of peace before the pack woke and filled every space with noise and movement, and the overwhelming scent of dominance that made her wolf whimper and tuck itself small inside her chest. She began her morning routine. Start the coffee. Prepare breakfast for 60 pack members. Set out the dishes. Clean as she went. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. You missed a spot. Lucy's hands stilled over the counter she'd been wiping down. She didn't need to turn around to know who had spoken. Alicia Booker's voice was unmistakable honey sweet on the surface, with something sharp and cruel underneath. "Where?" Lucy asked quietly, keeping her eyes down. Alicia swept into the kitchen like she owned it. In many ways she did. As the daughter of the pack's head beta, and the rumored future mate of Alpha Gordon Vaughn himself, Alicia commanded respect that Lucy could never dream of earning. She was beautiful in the way pack wolves valued tall and strong, with gleaming blonde hair and the kind of confidence that came from never once doubting your place in the world. There. Alicia pointed at a section of counter that Lucy had already cleaned twice. And there. Honestly, Lucy, if you can't even manage basic cleaning, what exactly are you good for? Lucy's fingers tightened on the cleaning cloth, but her voice remained steady. I'll clean it again. See that you do. Alicia's blue eyes swept over Lucy with unconcealed distaste. The Alpha is entertaining important guests today. Everything needs to be perfect. Not that you'd understand what that means. The words landed exactly as Alicia intended them to, not quite cruel enough to be called bullying, but designed to remind Lucy of the vast gulf between their stations. Lucy had learned long ago not to react. Reactions gave people like Alicia ammunition. Silence was safer. Yes, Alicia, Lucy murmured. Alicia smiled, satisfied, and helped herself to coffee from the pot Lucy had just brewed. She didn't say thank you. She never did. Why would she? Omegas existed to serve. After Alicia left, Lucy stood very still for a long moment, willing the tightness in her chest to ease. Her wolf whined softly inside her, a weak, pitiful sound that made Lucy want to scream. Even her wolf was pathetic. Other wolves were fierce and proud. Lucy's wolf was small and timid. Better at hiding than fighting. Better at running than standing ground. Weak, Lucy thought, the word bitter in her mind. Just like everyone says. But she couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. Not when there was still so much work to do. The pack house came alive as morning progressed. Warriors filed in from their dawn patrol, their bodies radiating heat and aggression as they grabbed food and coffee. Teenagers bounded through, loud and careless, tracking mud across floors Lucy had just mopped. The higher-ranking pack members took their seats at the main tables, talking and laughing and existing so fully in their spaces that Lucy felt like a ghost moving among the living. No one spoke to her directly. A few acknowledged her with curt nods, a dismissal more than a greeting. Most looked right through her. This was normal. This was fine. Lucy told herself it was fine. By midday, her body ached from hours of constant work, but she didn't slow down. The pack house needed to be immaculate for tonight's gathering. Alpha Gordon was meeting with the leaders of 3 neighboring packs, important allies in the fragile peace that existed between territories. Everything had to be perfect. Lucy was scrubbing the Grand Hall's marble floors when she heard the whispers. "Did you hear? The Nightshade pack is sending their alpha, Felix Porter. I heard he's ruthless. Ruthless doesn't even cover it. They say he killed his own father to take control of the pack. And that scar across his face got it from a silver blade in a challenge. Ripped half his jaw apart." Lucy kept her head down and her hands moving, but she listened. She was good at listening. Invisible people often were. The Nightshade pack. She'd heard of them, of course. Everyone had. They were one of the most powerful packs in the region, large, aggressive, fiercely territorial. Their alpha was a legend, though the stories about him varied wildly. Some called him a monster, others called him a tactical genius. All agreed he was dangerous. And tonight, he would be here, in Silvercrest's pack house. Lucy's wolf stirred uneasily. She hushed it and scrubbed harder. The afternoon disappeared in a blur of frantic preparation. Lucy helped set up the formal dining room, arranging place settings with trembling hands. She polished silverware until it gleamed. She made sure every glass was spotless, every napkin perfectly folded. Alicia inspected her work 3 times, finding new faults each time, sending Lucy back to redo tasks that were already flawless. By the time the sun began to set, Lucy was exhausted. Her hands were raw, her back ached, and she desperately wanted to retreat to her basement room and disappear for a few precious hours. But Omegas didn't get to rest when the pack had guests. Lucy. The voice belonged to Vera Gallegos, the pack house manager and one of the few people who spoke to Lucy with something approaching neutrality. "You'll be serving tonight. Stay in the kitchen unless called for. Keep your eyes down. Don't speak unless spoken to. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." Vera's expression softened slightly. "And Lucy? Stay away from the visiting alphas. They're not like our alpha. Some of them see Omegas as..." She stopped, her jaw tightening. "Just stay out of sight as much as possible." Fear flickered in Lucy's chest. "Yes, ma'am." As Vera walked away, Lucy wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm kitchen. She understood what Vera hadn't said. Visiting alphas sometimes saw Omegas as fair game prey to be hunted, toys to be played with. Alpha Gordon wouldn't intervene unless things got truly out of hand. After all, Omegas weren't worth starting pack conflicts over. Lucy's wolf whimpered again, and this time, Lucy didn't try to quiet it. The visiting packs began arriving as dusk painted the sky in shades of blood and gold. Lucy watched from the kitchen doorway, hidden in shadow, as the grand hall filled with powerful wolves. She could feel their dominance like pressure against her skin, making her want to flee, to hide, to submit. Her wolf cowered, and Lucy hated it. Hated her weakness. Hated that she would never be strong enough to stand among them as an equal. Alpha Gordon Vaughn stood at the center of the hall, magnificent in his authority. He was a large man, broad-shouldered and commanding, with golden brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. Alicia stood at his side, beautiful and perfect, playing the role of future alpha mate with practiced grace. Lucy felt a pang of something she refused to call envy. The other alphas arrived in succession. Thomas, Lord of the Ironwood Pack, a massive warrior with scars crisscrossing his arms. Ali Snell of the Red Moon Pack, lean and dangerous, with eyes that tracked movement like a predator's. And finally, fashionably late, the alpha everyone had been whispering about, Felix Porter. Lucy saw him from across the hall, and her breath caught. He was not what she expected. The stories had made him sound like a monster, but the man who entered the grand hall moved with a predator's grace that was almost beautiful. He was tall, taller even than Alpha Gordon, with broad shoulders and a powerful build that spoke of brutal training and even more brutal fights. His hair was black, worn slightly too long, falling across his forehead in a way that should have softened his appearance but somehow didn't. And the scar. It cut across the left side of his face, from temple to jaw, a jagged silver line that pulled slightly at the corner of his mouth. Instead of diminishing him, it made him more striking, dangerous, and magnetic in equal measure. But it was his eyes that made Lucy's wolf react. They were amber, bright and fierce and completely inhuman. Alpha eyes. Predator eyes. Eyes that saw everything and missed nothing. And for one heart-stopping moment, those eyes found her in the shadowed doorway. Lucy froze. Felix Porter's gaze locked onto hers across the crowded hall. And the world narrowed to just that, the impossible weight of an alpha's attention, focused entirely on her. On Lucy Macias, the invisible Omega. His expression didn't change. He didn't smile or frown or show any reaction at all. He simply looked. Like he was memorizing her. Like he was cataloging every detail of her face, her body, her existence. Then Alicia said something, and his attention shifted away. Lucy stumbled back into the kitchen, her heart hammering against her ribs. He looked at you, her wolf whispered, and for once it didn't sound weak. It sounded curious. Lucy shook her head sharply. No. She was imagining things. Alphas didn't look at Omegas. Not like that. Not ever. She had work to do. The dinner service was a nightmare of barely controlled chaos. Lucy and two other Omegas moved through the dining room like ghosts, placing dishes and pouring wine and trying desperately not to draw attention. The visiting alphas were loud and aggressive, their dominance filling the air until Lucy felt like she was drowning in it. She kept her eyes down. She stayed silent. She did exactly as she'd been trained to do, and she tried very, very hard not to feel Felix Porter's gaze on her every time she entered the room. But she could feel it, every single time. That amber stare tracking her movements with an intensity that made her skin prickle and her wolf pace restlessly inside her chest. Stop, she told herself frantically. You're imagining it. You're nobody. He's not looking at you. But when she glanced up just once, just to prove to herself that she was being ridiculous, Felix Porter was staring directly at her, his expression unreadable, his eyes burning with something that looked almost like eye recognition. Lucy's hands trembled so badly, she nearly dropped the wine bottle she was holding. She fled back to the kitchen and didn't emerge again until she absolutely had to. The dinner stretched on for hours. By the time the alphas finally moved to the sitting room for drinks and negotiations, Lucy was shaking with exhaustion and the effort of keeping herself together. Her wolf was agitated in a way it had never been before. Not frightened. Lucy. Vera appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. Clear the dining room, then you're dismissed for the night, quickly, before they come back. Lucy didn't need to be told twice. She gathered dishes with efficient, practiced movements, loading them onto trays and carrying them back to the kitchen. The dining room was a disaster. Food spilled, wine stained into the tablecloth, chairs pushed back at careless angles. It would take an hour to clean properly, but right now, all Lucy wanted was to finish and disappear. She was stacking the last of the glasses when she heard footsteps behind her. Heavy footsteps. Alpha footsteps. Lucy's entire body went rigid. You're the Omega, a voice said. Deep, rough, unmistakably masculine. Slowly, heart in her throat. Lucy turned. Felix Porter stood in the doorway of the dining room, his massive frame filling the space, his amber eyes locked on her with that same unnerving intensity from before. They were alone. Lucy's wolf should have been cowering. It should have been whimpering and submitting to the overwhelming dominance radiating from this alpha. Instead, it tilted its head. Curious. Yes, Alpha, Lucy managed, dropping her gaze to the floor. I'm sorry, I'll be out of your way in just… What's your name? The question was so unexpected that Lucy's brain stuttered. Alphas didn't ask Omegas for their names. Lucy, she whispered. Lucy Macias. Lucy. He said her name slowly, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. Then, look at me. It wasn't a request. Lucy's body obeyed before her mind could catch up, her eyes lifting to meet his. Up close, Felix Porter was even more intimidating. That scar pulled at his expression, giving him a permanent look of barely contained violence. But his eyes were searching her face like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Do you know why I came here tonight, Lucy? He asked quietly. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Neither do I. His mouth curved into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so sharp. Not anymore. And then he turned and walked away, leaving Lucy standing alone in the dining room, her heart racing and her wolf singing with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. The pack house finally settled into an uneasy quiet sometime after midnight. Lucy sat on the edge of her narrow bed in the basement, still wearing her work clothes, unable to make herself move. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white, and she stared at the cracked concrete floor without really seeing it. Do you know why I came here tonight, Lucy? Neither do I. Not anymore. What did that mean? What could it possibly mean? Lucy's wolf was still restless, pacing in circles inside her chest, agitated in a way that made no sense. Alphas were dangerous. Visiting alphas were even more dangerous. She should be afraid. She should be planning how to avoid Felix Porter for the remainder of his stay. Instead, her traitorous mind kept replaying the moment he'd said her name. The way his voice had wrapped around those two syllables like they were something precious. Like they mattered. Stop it, Lucy told herself fiercely. Stop being ridiculous. He probably doesn't even remember you already. But she couldn't shake the memory of those amber eyes, looking at her like she was the only person in the room, like she was visible. A knock on her door made Lucy jump so violently she nearly fell off the bed. Lucy? It was Naomi Stout, one of the other Omegas. You still awake? Lucy opened the door to find Naomi standing in the dim hallway, her round face creased with concern. Naomi was in her 40s, soft-spoken and kind, the closest thing Lucy had to a friend in the pack house. I'm fine, Lucy said automatically. No, you're not. I saw what happened in the dining room. Naomi pushed past her into the small room, closing the door behind her. Felix Porter cornered you. He didn't corner me. He just talked to me. Lucy. Naomi's voice was gentle but firm. Alphas like him don't just talk to Omegas. What did he want? I don't know. Lucy wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. He asked my name. He said. She stopped, the words tangling in her throat. It doesn't matter. I probably won't even see him again. Naomi's expression softened with something that looked like pity. Honey, I need you to be careful. These visiting alphas, they're not like our pack. They don't follow the same rules. And Felix Porter especially. She hesitated. They say he's looking for a mate. Lucy's stomach dropped. What? It's just rumors, but apparently his pack elders are pressuring him to choose someone. Some of the unmated she-wolves from the other packs are here hoping to catch his attention. Naomi squeezed Lucy's shoulder. So whatever you think happened tonight, whatever you're feeling, let it go. An alpha like that doesn't see Omegas as anything but… I know. Lucy cut her off, her voice sharper than she intended. I know what alphas think of Omegas. I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. I said be careful. Naomi's eyes were sad. I don't want to see you get hurt. After Naomi left, Lucy lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind refusing to quiet. She knew Naomi was right. She knew she was being foolish, even entertaining the smallest whisper of hope that Felix Porter's attention meant anything at all. Alphas didn't choose Omegas as mates. It simply didn't happen. Alphas needed strong partners, betas or other alphas who could stand beside them, who could strengthen their pack through powerful bloodlines. Omegas couldn't offer that. Omegas couldn't offer anything except weakness. Lucy's wolf whined softly, disagreeing, but Lucy ignored it. She had survived this long by accepting reality, by not wanting things that could never be hers, by staying invisible and safe and small. She needed to remember that. The next morning arrived too soon and brought with it a tension that hung over the pack house like storm clouds. Lucy could feel it the moment she entered the kitchen, the anxious energy of pack members preparing for something important. The visiting alphas were staying another day to finalize territory agreements, and apparently Alpha Gordon was planning some kind of demonstration to showcase Silvercrest's strength. "What's going on?" Lucy asked quietly as she tied her apron. Vera looked up from the massive pot of oatmeal she was stirring, her expression troubled. "There's going to be a challenge fight this afternoon. In the training yard. All the visiting packs are invited to watch." Lucy's blood went cold. Challenge fights were brutal affairs, dominance battles where warriors fought to prove their strength and loyalty. They were common in pack culture, but that didn't make them any less vicious. Who's fighting? Andrew Elder and Eric Wilkerson. Both gammas. Both trying to prove themselves worthy of beta rank. Vera shook her head. "It's going to be bloody." Lucy's hands trembled slightly as she began preparing breakfast. She'd seen challenge fights before, had cleaned up the aftermath more times than she could count. But something about this felt different, felt dangerous. The pack house buzzed with anticipation throughout the morning. Warriors sharpened their skills in the training rooms, their aggression bleeding into the air until even the walls seemed to vibrate with barely contained violence. The visiting alphas moved through the common areas like apex predators, their dominance making everyone else nervous and reactive. And Felix Porter was everywhere. Lucy caught glimpses of him throughout her morning work. In the main hall, speaking with Alpha Gordon in low tones. In the training room, watching the warriors with those sharp amber eyes. In the corridor, moving with that predatory grace that made her wolf sit up and take notice. Each time she saw him, her heart stuttered. And each time, she forced herself to look away, to remember Naomi's warning to stay invisible. But it was getting harder. By midday, the pack began gathering in the training yard, a large outdoor space behind the pack house, ringed with wooden bleachers and marked with fighting circles. Lucy and the other Omegas were tasked with setting up refreshment tables and ensuring the visiting alphas had everything they needed. Lucy kept her head down and her movements efficient, but she couldn't help noticing the way the unmated she-wolves from the visiting packs had positioned themselves. They clustered near where Felix Porter stood with the other alphas, their body language open and inviting, their laughter bright and calculated. They were beautiful, Lucy noticed with a pang she refused to acknowledge. Strong and confident, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. Exactly what an alpha would want. "Not like you," a cruel voice whispered in her mind. "Never like you, Lucy." Alicia's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Stop daydreaming, and bring the alpha his drink. Now." Lucy's head snapped up. "Which? Alpha Porter?" "Obviously." Alicia rolled her eyes. "God, do you ever pay attention?" Lucy's stomach clenched, but she nodded and carefully lifted the tray, bearing a glass of the pack's best whiskey. She approached the group of alphas with her eyes down, her steps small and unthreatening, every instinct screaming at her to turn around and run. "Alpha Porter," she murmured, stopping at a respectful distance. "Your drink." "Thank you, Lucy." Her eyes flew up before she could stop them. Felix Porter was looking directly at her, his expression unreadable, but something in his amber eyes made her wolf surge forward eagerly. He took the glass from the tray, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment, and Lucy felt that touch like electricity racing up her arm. She yanked her hand back, nearly dropping the tray. "Careful," Felix said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You're shaking." "I'm fine, Alpha," Lucy whispered. "Are you?" Before she could answer, before she could even process the question, one of the she-wolves from the Red Moon pack stepped between them with a bright smile. "Alpha Porter, I was hoping we could discuss the trade agreements our packs owe." Her eyes landed on Lucy, and her smile turned sharp. "I didn't realize you were busy with the help." The dismissal was so complete, so casual, that Lucy felt it like a slap. She was invisible again. Background noise. Nothing. She retreated quickly, her face burning, and didn't look back. The challenge fight began an hour later with a level of savagery that made Lucy flinch. She stood at the edge of the crowd, near the refreshment tables where she could watch without being obvious about it. Andrew Elder and Eric Wilkerson circled each other in the fighting ring, both already half-shifted, their eyes glowing with their wolf's presence. The first clash was brutal. Bodies collided with bone-crushing force, claws tearing into flesh, blood spattering the dirt. The crowd roared their approval, the visiting alphas watching with calculating interest, measuring Silvercrest's strength. Lucy's wolf whined at the violence, but she forced herself to stay still. This was pack culture. This was how wolves proved themselves. This was everything she would never be. Impressive, she heard Felix Porter say from somewhere nearby. Your gammas are well trained, Gordon. Silvercrest values strength above all else, Alpha Gordon replied, pride evident in his voice. Only the strong survive here. Only the strong survive. Lucy's chest tightened. She'd heard variations of that phrase her entire life. It was pack law, pack truth, and it was exactly why she would always be at the bottom. Because she wasn't strong. She would never be strong. The fight intensified, becoming more vicious, and Lucy found herself looking away from the violence, only to lock eyes with Felix Porter across the crowd. He wasn't watching the fight anymore. He was watching her, and his expression was troubled, like he was trying to solve a problem he couldn't quite figure out. Lucy's heart hammered in her chest. She should look away. She should. A scream cut through the air. Lucy's head whipped back to the fighting ring in time to see Eric Wilkerson collapse, blood pouring from a savage wound across his ribs. Andrew Elder stood over him, victory clear in his posture, his wolf surging beneath his skin. The crowd erupted in cheers. But Lucy's attention was caught by something else. Movement at the edge of the training yard. Shadows shifting in the tree line. And then she smelled it, the acrid, wrong scent of rogues. Her wolf snarled a warning a split second before the attack came. They burst from the trees like demons, at least 20 rogue wolves, their eyes mad and their movements erratic. They'd been waiting, Lucy realized with horror. Waiting for the pack to be distracted. Chaos erupted. The pack warriors shifted immediately, meeting the rogues in a clash of fur and fangs. The visiting alphas transformed as well, defending territory that wasn't even theirs with the automatic instinct of predators protecting their ground. Lucy ran. She wasn't a fighter. She couldn't help. The only thing she could do was get out of the way and let the warriors do their job. She made it halfway to the pack house when she heard the screaming. High-pitched, terrified, children. Lucy skidded to a stop, her heart seizing in her chest. The pack's nursery was in a building separate from the main house, a converted cottage at the edge of the property. During the challenge fight, all the adults had been in the training yard, leaving the youngest pack members with just 2 elderly caretakers, and the rogues had split their forces. Lucy watched in horror as 3 rogues peeled away from the main fight and headed straight for the nursery. No one else had noticed. Everyone was focused on the larger battle. Run, her mind screamed. Hide. You can't fight rogues. You'll die. But her wolf, her weak, pathetic Omega wolf surged forward with a ferocity she'd never felt before. Cubs. It snarled. Our cubs. Lucy's body moved before her brain could stop it. She sprinted toward the nursery, terror and instinct warring in her chest. She had no weapons, no training, no strength, but she had to try. The rogues reached the nursery door first. Lucy heard wood splintering, heard the terrified shrieks of children, heard the elderly caretakers screaming, and something inside Lucy snapped. She shifted not fully. Her Omega wolf too weak to complete the transformation, but enough that claws erupted from her fingers, and her teeth sharpened into fangs. She threw herself at the first rogue with a scream that was more fury than fear. Her claws raked across its back. The rogue howled and spun, confusion crossing its mad features and Omega attacking? Impossible. But Lucy was already moving, putting herself between the rogues and the nursery door, her small body shaking but holding its ground. Get away from them, she screamed, her voice raw. The rogues actually laughed at her audacity. And then they attacked. Pain exploded across Lucy's shoulder as claws tore through her flesh. She stumbled but didn't fall, her wolf screaming defiance. She slashed wildly, catching one rogue across the face, drawing blood. It wasn't enough. She was going to die here. But if she could just buy enough time, if she could just… A massive black wolf appeared from nowhere, moving with the speed of a nightmare. It slammed into the rogues with devastating force, jaws closing around one's throat with lethal precision. Bones crunched. Blood sprayed. 2 more wolves appeared, amber-furred and vicious, tearing into the remaining rogues with practiced efficiency. And suddenly Felix Porter was there in human form, having shifted back so fast Lucy's dazed mind couldn't process it. He was covered in blood, none of it his, and his amber eyes were blazing as they locked onto her. "You foolish, brave little Omega," he breathed. Then Lucy's legs gave out, and everything went black. Chapter dry. When monsters kiss back. Lucy woke to the scent of cedar and smoke, wild and masculine, and utterly overwhelming. Her eyes fluttered open, and the first thing she registered was warmth. She was lying on something soft, covered in blankets that smelled like the forest after rain. The second thing she registered was pain, a dull, throbbing ache radiating from her shoulder, where the rogue had clawed her. The third thing she registered made her heart stop. Felix Porter sat in a chair beside the bed, his massive frame too large for the delicate furniture, his amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that stole her breath. "You're awake," he said, his voice rough. "Good. You've been out for 3 hours. Lucy tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her shoulder, making her gasp. "Don't." Felix was on his feet instantly, one large hand pressing gently against her uninjured shoulder, easing her back down. "The pack healer stitched you up, but you need to rest. You lost a lot of blood. The children." Lucy's voice came out as a rasp. "Safe. All of them, thanks to you." Something shifted in Felix's expression, something that looked almost like awe. "You stood between 3 rogues and a nursery full of cubs. You, an Omega who can barely complete a shift, went up against trained killers." Lucy's cheeks burned. "I didn't think. You just risked your life for children that weren't even yours." Felix's hand was still on her shoulder, warm and steady. "Do you have any idea how rare that is? How remarkable?" "I'm not remarkable," Lucy whispered, unable to meet his eyes. "I'm just an Omega. Anyone would have." "No." His voice was sharp, commanding. "Not anyone. Most wolves, even strong ones, would have run. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct. But you." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. "You have the heart of an alpha, Lucy Macias. Even if your rank doesn't reflect it." Tears stung Lucy's eyes. She didn't know what to do with his words, with the way he was looking at her like she was something precious instead of something broken. "Where am I?" she asked, desperate to change the subject. "Guest quarters. I had you brought here after the fight." Felix's jaw tightened. "Your alpha was going to send you back to your basement room." "I disagreed with that decision." Lucy's eyes widened. "You argued with Alpha Gordon? Over me?" "I did more than argue." Felix's smile was sharp and dangerous. "I claimed guest right to keep you under my protection until you healed." He wasn't happy about it, but he couldn't refuse without insulting the Nightshade Pack. "But why would you?" Lucy stopped, her mind reeling. "You barely know me." Felix studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned back in his chair, creating distance between them, and Lucy felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing. "The rogues are dead," he said, changing the subject with deliberate precision. "All of them. We lost 2 warriors in the attack, but it could have been much worse. The pack is in mourning, but they're also celebrating their victory. And the nursery? Untouched, thanks to you." Felix's eyes were burning again. "The cubs are calling you their hero. The elderly caretakers are telling everyone who will listen about the Omega who fought like a warrior. You've become quite famous in the last 3 hours." Lucy's stomach twisted with anxiety. Famous was the last thing she wanted to be. Famous meant visible, and visible meant vulnerable. "I need to go back," she said, struggling to sit up again despite the pain. You need to rest." Felix's voice was firm. "Healer's orders. You're to stay in bed for at least 24 hours. But my duties are being handled by others." He crossed his arms, his expression brooking no argument. "You almost died, Lucy. You're allowed to recover. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning Lucy didn't know how to interpret. Why do you care? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Why does any of this matter to you? Felix's expression shuddered immediately, his walls slamming back into place. Get some rest. I'll have food sent up. He was gone before Lucy could respond, the door closing behind him with a soft click that felt like finality. Lucy lay back against the pillows, her mind spinning, her wolf whining with confusion and something that felt dangerously like longing. What is happening? The pack house was different when Lucy finally emerged from the guest quarters the next morning. People stared at her now, not through her, but at her. Warriors nodded in respect as she passed. Bettas murmured greetings. Even some of the higher-ranking she-wolves offered tentative smiles. Lucy hated it. She wanted to disappear back into invisibility, back into safety, but she couldn't. Something had shifted, and she didn't know how to shift it back. There she is. Naomi appeared from the kitchen, her face bright with relief. Oh honey, you scared us all half to death. When we heard what you did. She pulled Lucy into a careful hug, mindful of her injured shoulder. You're either the bravest or the most foolish Omega I've ever met. Definitely foolish, Lucy muttered. Well, foolish or not, you saved those cubs. The whole pack is talking about it. Naomi's expression turned serious. And they're talking about something else, too. Lucy's stomach sank. What? Felix Porter. The way he claimed guest right over you. The way he's been guarding your door like a sentinel for the past 24 hours. Naomi lowered her voice. Lucy, people are starting to wonder if… Don't. Lucy cut her off sharply. Don't say it. Whatever people are thinking, they're wrong. He's just being kind. That's all. Naomi looked at her with the same pitying expression from before. Honey, alphas like Felix Porter don't do kind without reason. Before Lucy could respond, Alicia's voice cut through the common room like a knife. Well. The hero awakens. Lucy turned to find Alicia standing in the doorway, her beautiful face twisted with something ugly. Behind her stood several unmated she-wolves from both Silvercrest and the visiting packs, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Alicia, Lucy said carefully, her instincts screaming danger. I have to admit, I'm impressed. Alicia's smile was poisonous. It takes real skill to manipulate an alpha, the way you've manipulated Felix Porter. Lucy's blood went cold. I haven't manipulated anyone. No? Then why has he been camped outside your door like a loyal dog? Why did he threaten Alpha Gordon over a lowly Omega? Alicia stepped closer, her dominance pressing against Lucy like a physical weight. What did you do, Lucy? Bat your pathetic eyes? Play the helpless victim? I didn't do anything, Lucy said, her voice shaking. I don't know why Alpha Porter. Liar. One of the visiting she-wolves stepped forward, Gay Warner from the Ironwood pack, tall and powerful, with the kind of confidence Lucy would never possess. We all saw the way he looked at you, the way he watches you when he thinks no one notices. You're imagining things, Lucy whispered. Am I? Gay's eyes were cold. Let me tell you what I think, Omega. I think you've gotten it into your pathetic little head that you have a chance with an alpha like Felix Porter. I think you've been throwing yourself at him, using your weakness to appeal to his protective instincts. That's not… It won't work. Alicia's voice was sharp and cruel. Do you know what alphas do with omegas who get above their station? They use them and discard them. You're nothing but a curiosity to him, Lucy. A broken thing he feels sorry for. Once he's bored, he'll throw you away like the trash you are. Each word landed like a blow, and Lucy felt something cracking inside her chest. Stay away from Felix Porter, Gay added, her voice dropping to a threatening growl. Stay in your place, Omega. Or we'll put you back there ourselves. They left in a swirl of perfume and barely contained aggression, leaving Lucy standing in the common room, shaking and trying desperately not to cry. Lucy, Naomi reached for her. I need to work, Lucy said, her voice hollow. I need to work. She fled to the kitchen before Naomi could stop her, before the tears could fall, before she completely fell apart. Because Alicia was right. Gay was right. Lucy was nothing. She was an Omega, weak and worthless and foolish for ever thinking, even for a moment, that someone like Felix Porter could see her as anything more than a charity case. Lucy threw herself into work with desperate intensity. She scrubbed floors until her hands bled. She cleaned rooms that were already spotless. She took on every task no one else wanted, pushing her body past exhaustion, trying to drown out the voices in her head with physical labor. Trash, worthless, broken thing. By evening, she was stumbling with fatigue, her injured shoulder screaming in protest. But she couldn't stop. If she stopped, she would have to think. If she thought, she would have to feel. Lucy. She froze, her hand still gripping the mop she'd been using. Felix Porter stood in the doorway of the dining room, his expression dark and troubled. "You shouldn't be working," he said. "You should be resting." "I'm fine." Lucy kept her eyes on the floor, refusing to look at him. "I have duties. Your duties can wait." "No, they can't." Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "I'm an Omega, Alpha Porter. This is what I do. This is all I'm good for." Silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. "Who told you that?" Felix's voice was dangerously soft. "Everyone." Lucy finally looked up, and she couldn't keep the bitterness out of her voice. "Everyone has told me that, my entire life. And they're right. I'm weak. I'm worthless. Stop." Felix crossed the room in 3 long strides, and suddenly he was right there, too close, his presence overwhelming. His hand caught her chin, tilting her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Don't," he said, his voice rough with something that sounded like anger. "Don't you dare diminish yourself like that." "Why do you care?" Lucy's eyes were burning with unshed tears. "I'm nothing to you. I'm just an Omega, a broken thing you feel sorry for." "Is that what you think?" Felix's grip on her chin tightened, not painfully but firm. "You think I've been watching you out of pity? I don't know why you've been watching me at all." The words burst out of her, raw and desperate, and suddenly she was crying hot, angry tears streaming down her face as everything she'd been holding back came pouring out. "I don't understand any of this," she sobbed. "I don't understand why you talk to me, why you look at me, why you claimed guest right over me. Alphas don't do that for Omegas. They don't care about us. We're nothing. Felix kissed her. It was sudden and fierce, and completely overwhelming, his mouth claiming hers with a possessiveness that stole her breath and made her wolf surge forward with a joy so intense it was almost painful. Lucy made a small, shocked sound against his lips, and Felix gentled immediately, the kiss softening into something tender and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid of breaking. When he pulled back, his amber eyes were blazing. "You're not nothing," he said, his voice rough. "You're not broken. You're not worthless. And I don't feel sorry for you, Lucy Macias. I feel..." He stopped, his jaw clenching. "I feel things I have no right to feel. Things that terrify me." Lucy stared at him, her mind completely blank, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "I've been looking for you," Felix continued, his thumb brushing away her tears with surprising gentleness. "For years. My whole life, maybe. I just didn't know it until I walked into that dining room and saw you standing there with your eyes down and your shoulders hunched, trying so hard to be invisible. But I'm an Omega. I know." His smile was sharp and self-deprecating. "Trust me, I know. My pack elders would lose their minds if they knew what I was thinking, what I'm about to do." "What are you about to do?" Felix's hand slid from her chin to cup her cheek, his touch impossibly gentle for someone so dangerous. "I'm going to court you, Lucy Macias, properly, publicly. I'm going to show every wolf in this pack and mine that you are valuable, that you are worthy, that you are mine." Lucy's breath caught. "You can't. They'll never accept. I don't care what they accept." His voice was hard, commanding pure alpha dominance that made her wolf want to bare her throat in submission and exhilaration. "You stood between rogues and defenseless cubs. You risked your life without hesitation. You have more courage in your little finger than most warriors have in their entire bodies. You think I care what rank you were born with? Your pack will learn to respect you, or they'll answer to me." Felix's eyes were burning. "I've led the Nightshade pack for 5 years. I've made hard decisions, brutal decisions. But this? His thumb traced her cheekbone. This is the easiest decision I've ever made. I don't understand, Lucy whispered. Why me? Because when I look at you, I see someone who refuses to break no matter how many times the world tries to break her. I see strength that has nothing to do with physical power. I see, he stopped, something vulnerable crossing his scarred face. I see home, Lucy. For the first time in my life, I see home. Lucy's tears were flowing freely now, but they weren't tears of pain anymore. This is crazy, she said, but her hand came up to cover his where it rested against her cheek. Probably. Felix's smile was devastating, genuine and warm, and directed entirely at her. Are you brave enough to be crazy with me? Lucy thought about everything she'd been told her entire life. About staying small and invisible. About accepting her place. About never wanting things that weren't meant for someone like her. And then she thought about how it felt when Felix looked at her like she mattered. Like she was visible. Like she was enough exactly as she was. Yes, she whispered. Felix's smile widened. And then he was kissing her again, deeper this time, claiming and promising and sealing something between them that felt inevitable and impossible and absolutely terrifying. When they finally broke apart, Lucy was breathless and dizzy and more frightened than she'd ever been, but also more alive. Tomorrow, Felix said, his forehead resting against hers. I'm going to formally request permission from your alpha to court you. It's going to cause chaos. Are you ready for that? No, Lucy admitted. Good. His grin was sharp and wild. Neither am I. But we'll face it together. If Lucy's courage made your heart race, subscribe and be the person who stands with her through what comes next. Because Lucy deserves witnesses who won't abandon her when the pack turns on her. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like Lucy invisible until someone finally saw you for who you really are. As Felix finally left her in the dining room, with one last lingering kiss that made her knees weak, Lucy touched her lips with trembling fingers and tried to process what had just happened. An alpha wanted to court her. An alpha saw value in her. And tomorrow, the entire pack would know. Lucy's wolf was singing with joy. But her human mind was terrified. Because she knew what was coming. The pack wouldn't accept this. The visiting wolves wouldn't accept this. Alicia and Gay and all the others who saw her as nothing but an omega, they would fight this with everything they had. But Felix had said they would face it together. And for the first time in her life, Lucy wasn't alone. Chapter 4. The Price of Being Seen. News traveled fast in a pack house. By the time Lucy returned to her basement room that night, every Omega in Silvercrest knew what was coming. They were waiting for her, Naomi, along with the other two Omegas, Juana McClure and Terry Brown, their faces a mixture of excitement and terror. Is it true? Juana demanded the moment Lucy closed the door. She was young, barely 20, with wide brown eyes that were currently filled with disbelief. Did Felix Porter really kiss you? Lucy's face flushed hot. How did you? Fran Norman saw you two in the dining room, Terry interrupted, her voice hushed. Terry was the oldest Omega in the pack, nearly 60, with gray-streaked hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She told Vera, who told everyone else. Lucy, the entire pack house is talking about it. Of course they are, Lucy said, sinking onto her bed with a groan. Her injured shoulder throbbed in protest, but it was nothing compared to the panic clawing at her chest. This is insane, Naomi said, pacing the small room like a caged animal. Lucy, do you have any idea what you've done? What this means? I know exactly what it means. Lucy's voice was sharper than intended. It means I'm going to be even more hated than I already am. It means every unmated she-wolf in the pack is going to want my head. It means you might actually get out of here, Juana breathed, her eyes shining with something that looked dangerously like hope. Lucy, if Felix Porter claims you as his mate, you'd leave Silvercrest. You'd be Luna of the Nightshade Pack. You'd be... It's not going to happen, Terry cut in, her voice hard with reality. Alpha Gordon will never allow it. He can't afford to look weak by letting one of his Omegas be courted by a visiting Alpha. It sets a precedent. It suggests that Silvercrest doesn't value its lowest-ranking members enough to keep them. But Felix said, Felix can say whatever he wants, Terry continued, not unkindly. But Gordon is Alpha here. Felix is a guest. And pack law is very clear about these things. A wolf must have their alpha's permission to accept courtship from an outside pack. The words landed like stones in Lucy's stomach. She'd been so caught up in the impossible reality of Felix's words, of his kiss, that she hadn't thought through the practicalities. Of course Alpha Gordon would have to approve. Of course there would be protocols and politics and pack law standing between her and any chance at happiness. Gordon won't say yes, Lucy whispered. Why would he? I'm just an Omega. I'm not worth causing problems with the other packs. Exactly. Terry's expression was sad but firm. Which is why you need to be prepared, honey. Tomorrow, when Felix makes his formal request, Gordon is going to refuse. And then? She trailed off. But they all knew what came next. Then Felix would have to either accept the refusal and leave, or challenge Alpha Gordon directly, which would mean war between the packs. No Alpha would risk war over an Omega. Not even one who said he saw home when he looked at her. Lucy's wolf whined miserably. And this time, Lucy didn't have the strength to quiet it. She barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Felix's face, the way he'd looked at her with such intensity, such certainty. The way his voice had roughened when he called her mine. The way his kiss had felt like a promise she desperately wanted to believe in. But Terry's words kept echoing in her mind. No Alpha would risk war over an Omega. By the time dawn broke, Lucy had convinced herself that Felix would change his mind, that he'd realize the impossibility of what he was trying to do, that he'd leave Silvercrest without looking back, and Lucy would return to her invisible existence, and everything would go back to normal. It had to. Because the alternative, believing in something that could never be, allowing herself to hope only to have it ripped away, that would destroy her. The pack house was chaos that morning. Word had spread beyond just the Omegas. Everyone knew that Felix Porter planned to make a formal request to Alpha Gordon. Warriors gathered in tight groups, their voices low and tense. The visiting pack members watched everything with calculating eyes. And the unmated she-wolves, God. The unmated she-wolves looked like they wanted to tear Lucy apart with their bare hands. Lucy kept her head down and tried to stay invisible, but it was impossible now. Everywhere she went, people stared, some with curiosity, some with contempt, a few with something that might have been pity. Lucy. Vera caught her arm as she tried to slip past the kitchen. Alpha Gordon wants to see you. In his office. Now. Lucy's blood turned to ice. Why? Why do you think? Vera's expression was troubled. Felix Porter formally requested an audience this morning. Gordon agreed to meet with him at noon. But first, he wants to talk to you. Lucy's hands were shaking as she climbed the stairs to Alpha Gordon's office on the second floor. She'd only been in this part of the pack house a handful of times. The upper floors were reserved for high-ranking pack members, a world she wasn't supposed to touch. Gordon's office was exactly what she'd expected, large and imposing, with dark wood furniture and walls covered in pack history, photographs of past alphas, territorial maps, awards and honors from interpack competitions. Alpha Gordon sat behind his massive desk, his expression unreadable as Lucy entered. Lucy Macius, he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Sit. Lucy sat in the chair across from him, her spine straight despite her terror, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Gordon studied her for a long moment, his golden brown eyes assessing. Do you know why I called you here? Yes, Alpha. Then you know that Felix Porter has made a highly unusual request. He wants permission to formally court you. An Omega from my pack. Gordon leaned back in his chair. Tell me, Lucy, how did you manage to catch the attention of one of the most powerful alphas in the region? The question was deceptively casual, but Lucy heard the accusation underneath it. I didn't try to catch his attention, Alpha. I don't know why. Don't you? Gordon's eyes narrowed. You fought rogues to protect the nursery. Very heroic. Very visible. Some might say it was a calculated move to make yourself seem valuable. Lucy's head snapped up, anger flaring despite her fear. I fought rogues because children were in danger, not for attention. And yet attention is exactly what you got. Gordon's smile was cold. Felix Porter, claiming guest right over you, guarding your door, making declarations that you're under his protection. Tell me, Lucy, what exactly happened between you two? Nothing inappropriate, Alpha. He said he wanted to court me. Court you? Gordon's voice was flat with disbelief. An Omega. He wants to court an Omega when there are dozens of strong, suitable she-wolves from good bloodlines right here in this pack house. He leaned forward. What did you do to manipulate him? I didn't manipulate anyone. Then explain to me why an alpha of his standing would debase himself by pursuing the weakest member of my pack. The words hit like physical blows. Lucy flinched, her wolf whimpering, but she forced herself to hold Gordon's gaze. I can't explain it, Alpha. But I didn't ask for this. I didn't want. What you want is irrelevant. Gordon's voice was hard. What matters is what's best for this pack. And allowing one of my Omegas to be courted by an outside Alpha, especially one as powerful as Felix Porter, sends a message that Silvercrest is weak, that we don't value our own members enough to keep them. Then refuse him, Lucy said, her voice hollow. Tell him no. Gordon's expression shifted into something calculating. Oh, I intend to. But first, I need you to understand something, Lucy. If I refuse Felix Porter's request, he will leave. He'll return to his pack, and you'll never see him again. This fantasy you've built in your head, it will end. And you will return to your duties as an Omega, exactly as you were before. Lucy nodded, her throat tight. I understand, Alpha. Do you? Gordon stood, moving around his desk to loom over her. Because I get the sense that you've forgotten your place, Lucy. That you've started to believe you're something more than what you are. Let me remind you, you are an Omega. The lowest rank. Weak. Worthless, except for the menial labor you provide. No amount of heroics or attention from visiting Alphas will change that fundamental truth. Each word was designed to cut, to remind her of her station, to put her back in the box she'd spent her whole life in. And it was working. Yes, Alpha, Lucy whispered, her eyes burning with unshed tears. Good. Gordon's smile was satisfied. Now, get out. I have a meeting to prepare for. Lucy fled. She made it to the basement before the tears came hot and bitter, and filled with a grief that surprised her with its intensity. Because she'd known. She'd known from the beginning that this couldn't work, that Felix's attention was temporary, that reality would crash back down and crush whatever fragile hope had been building in her chest. But knowing it and feeling it were two different things. Weak, worthless. No amount of heroics will change that fundamental truth. Lucy curled up on her bed, her injured shoulder screaming in protest, and let herself break down in a way she rarely allowed. She cried for the girl she'd been, who'd learned to accept invisibility. She cried for the woman she'd briefly thought she could become, standing beside an Alpha who saw her as valuable. She cried for the future that was being ripped away before it even had a chance to begin. She cried until she had nothing left. And then, with shaking hands and a hollow chest, she got up and washed her face and prepared to watch Felix Porter be told that she wasn't worth fighting for. The formal meeting took place in the PAC's council room at exactly noon. Lucy wasn't supposed to be there. Omegas weren't allowed in council meetings. But Vera had whispered that Gordon wanted her nearby in case she was needed. Which really meant Gordon wanted her close enough to parade out as evidence of her unworthiness if Felix pushed too hard. So Lucy stood in the hallway outside the council room, her back pressed against the wall, and listened through the partially open door, as her fate was decided by people who had never once asked what she wanted. Alpha Porter. Gordon's voice was formal, carrying the weight of pack authority. You've requested this meeting to discuss a matter of courtship. I have. Felix's voice sent shivers down Lucy's spine even through the door. I wish to formally court Lucy Macias, with your permission as her Alpha. I see. A pause. And you understand that Lucy is an Omega? The lowest rank in my pack? I'm aware of her rank. Felix's voice was carefully neutral. It doesn't change my intentions, doesn't it? Lucy could hear the skepticism in Gordon's tone. Alpha Porter. I'm going to be blunt. This is highly irregular. Alphas don't court Omegas. It's simply not done. The bloodline would be weakened. The pack would be embarrassed. And frankly, I question your judgment in pursuing someone so obviously beneath your station. Silence. Then Felix's voice, colder than Lucy had ever heard it. Beneath my station? Don't misunderstand me, Gordon continued smoothly. Lucy served well during the rogue attack. Her bravery was commendable. But bravery doesn't change biology. She's weak, Alpha Porter. Fragile. She can barely shift, can't fight, can't contribute to pack strength in any meaningful way. What could you possibly want with her? That's not your concern. Actually, it is. Lucy belongs to my pack. I'm responsible for her welfare, and I have to question whether your interest in her is appropriate. Gordon's voice took on a knowing edge. Some alphas develop peculiar tastes. They seek out omegas because the power dynamic appeals to them, because they enjoy having someone completely submissive, completely under their control. Is that what this is, Alpha Porter? Lucy felt sick. Choose your next words very carefully, Gordon. Felix's voice was deadly quiet. You're implying things that could be considered an insult to my honor. I'm simply trying to understand your motivations. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like an alpha indulging in a passing fancy. You'll court Lucy, maybe even claim her, and then when the novelty wears off, you'll discard her. And my pack will be left with an omega who's been ruined for any future purpose. I would never. You say that now. But omegas are fragile creatures, Alpha Porter. They don't handle rejection well. If you lose interest when you lose interest, Lucy will be broken, useless. I can't allow that risk. Lucy's hands were clenched so tightly her nails drew blood from her palms. She wanted to run, wanted to disappear, wanted to be anywhere but here, listening to two alphas discuss her like she was property instead of a person. Then let me make this simple, Felix said, his voice tight with controlled rage. I'm not asking out of politeness, Gordon. I'm telling you I intend to court Lucy Macias. With or without your blessing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. That sounds dangerously close to a challenge, Alpha Porter. Take it however you want. Felix's voice was pure steel. But understand this, I've made my intentions clear. If you refuse me, you're not protecting Lucy. You're trapping her in a pack that sees her as worthless. You're denying her a chance at a better life because of your own pride. Her life is fine here. Is it? Felix's voice rose slightly. She lives in a basement. She's treated like a servant. She's been told her entire life that she's weak and worthless and invisible. And you call that fine? That's the life of an omega. She's accepted it. Because she's never been given any other option. Felix was angry now. Truly angry. But I'm offering her one. A life where she's valued, protected, cherished. And you're going to stand in the way of that because you're worried about appearances? I'm going to stand in the way, Gordon said coldly. Because I'm her alpha, and I decide what's best for my pack members. And what's best for Lucy is to stay here, where she belongs. Request denied. Alpha Porter. The words fell like a guillotine blade. Lucy's world tilted. Request denied. It was over. She waited for Felix to argue more, to push harder, to... Fine, Felix said, his voice suddenly calm. Too calm. Then I'll make you a different offer, Gordon, one you can't refuse. I'm listening. The Nightshade Pack has been looking to expand our hunting territories. Your pack sits on the border of what we consider prime land. Felix's voice was calculating now, political. I'm willing to cede my claim to that territory permanently in exchange for Lucy. Lucy heard several sharp intakes of breath from the other pack members in the room. You're offering territory, Gordon said slowly. For an omega? I am. That's insane. That's my offer. Felix's voice was uncompromising. The territory is worth more than 3 times what Lucy would bring you in labor over her lifetime. It's a good deal, Gordon. Take it. Silence stretched. Lucy held her breath, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. And if I refuse this offer as well? Gordon asked carefully. Then I challenge you for her. Felix's voice was quiet but absolute. Right here, right now. Winner takes Lucy and keeps their territory. Loser submits. More gasps. Challenging an alpha in his own pack house was an act of war. It could destabilize the region, could cause alliances to fracture, could lead to bloodshed that lasted for years. And Felix was willing to risk all of that. For her. For Lucy Macias, the worthless omega. You're bluffing, Gordon said, but Lucy could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Try me. Felix's voice was deadly serious. I came here for her, Gordon. I'm not leaving without her. So you can accept my generous offer and gain valuable territory. Or you can fight me, likely lose, and gain nothing. Your choice. The council room was silent enough to hear a pin drop. Lucy stood frozen in the hallway, tears streaming down her face, unable to process what she was hearing. Felix was willing to go to war. For her. I need time to consider, Gordon finally said, his voice tight. You have until sunset. After that my offer expires, and we settle this the old way. Felix's footsteps moved toward the door. And Gordon? If you make the wrong choice, it won't be your pack that suffers. It will be you, personally. I promise you that. The door opened, and Felix stepped into the hallway. His eyes found Lucy immediately, and the fury in them shifted into something softer. Concerned. You heard, he said. Not a question. Lucy nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Felix crossed the distance between them in 2 strides and pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her like he could shield her from the entire world. I meant every word, he murmured into her hair. I'm not leaving without you, Lucy. Not now. Not ever. And despite everything, despite the impossibility of it all, despite knowing that this could end in violence and bloodshed and war, Lucy let herself believe him. Just for a moment. She let herself believe that she was worth fighting for. Chapter 5. Claws and Consequences. The pack house descended into barely controlled chaos after the council meeting. Word spread within minutes Felix Porter had offered territory for Lucy Macias, had threatened to challenge Alpha Gordon if refused, had declared, in front of witnesses, that he would go to war over an Omega. It was unprecedented, unthinkable, insane, and everyone had an opinion. Lucy tried to retreat to her basement room, but Felix wouldn't let her go. He kept her at his side, one arm around her shoulders, radiating enough dominance that no one dared approach them directly. But she could feel the stares, could hear the whispers following them through the corridors. She's not worth it. He's lost his mind. Gordon should just give her up. She's only an Omega. This is going to start a war. Each comment landed like a knife between Lucy's ribs. But Felix's grip on her tightened every time someone spoke. His silent message clear. Let them talk. They ended up in the guest quarters where Lucy had recovered from her injuries, the same room where Felix had kept vigil over her. He locked the door behind them and immediately pulled Lucy into his arms again, as if touching her was the only thing keeping him grounded. I'm sorry, Lucy whispered against his chest. I'm sorry you have to do this. I'm sorry I'm causing so much trouble. Stop. Felix's voice was rough. You're not causing anything. This is Gordon's doing, his pride, his prejudice, his inability to see what's right in front of him. But the territory, Felix, you're offering so much. Too much. I'm not worth. Felix pulled back just enough to cup her face in his hands, his amber eyes burning with intensity. Don't finish that sentence. Don't you ever say you're not worth something, Lucy. That territory means nothing to me. It's land. Resources. Things that can be replaced. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You can't be replaced. You barely know me, Lucy said, her voice breaking. How can you be so sure? Because I've spent my entire life surrounded by strong wolves who were hollow inside. Warriors who could tear through enemies but had no compassion. Leaders who commanded respect but inspired no loyalty. Alphas who took and never gave anything back. Felix's expression was raw, vulnerable in a way she suspected few people ever saw. And then I walked into a dining room and saw a small Omega trying to make herself invisible, and something in my chest just clicked into place. That doesn't make sense. No, Felix agreed with a small smile. It doesn't, but it's true anyway. He pressed his forehead against hers. I've been looking for someone real, Lucy. Someone genuine. Someone whose strength comes from surviving instead of dominating. And I found you. Lucy's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they weren't tears of pain. What if Gordon refuses? What if you have to fight him? Then I fight him. You could die. I won't. Felix's confidence was absolute, almost arrogant. Gordon is a competent alpha, but he's comfortable, soft. He hasn't had to truly fight for his position in years. I've been fighting my entire life. His smile turned sharp and dangerous. If it comes to a challenge, I'll win. And then you'll be coming home with me anyway. But your pack, they won't accept me. They'll see me as They'll see you as their Luna, Felix interrupted firmly. Because that's what you'll be, my mate, my equal, the female I've chosen to stand beside me. He pulled back to look at her seriously. I know this is fast, Lucy. I know this is terrifying. And I know you have every reason not to trust that I mean what I'm saying. But I'm asking you to be brave one more time. Be brave enough to believe that you deserve this. That you deserve to be chosen. Lucy searched his face, looking for any sign of deception, any hint that this was temporary or false, or some kind of cruel joke. She found nothing but absolute sincerity. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Felix's smile was brilliant and devastating. He kissed her deep and possessive and full of promise, and for a few stolen moments, Lucy let herself forget about everything waiting outside this room. She let herself just feel. Sunset came too quickly. Felix had insisted Lucy stay in the guest quarters while he returned to the council room for Gordon's answer. I need you safe, he'd said, his expression dark. If this goes badly, I don't want you anywhere near the violence. So Lucy waited, pacing the small room like a caged animal, her wolf whining anxiously inside her chest. Naomi had snuck up with food an hour ago, though Lucy couldn't eat. The whole pack is gathered outside, Naomi had reported, her voice hushed. Everyone wants to see what Gordon decides. Lucy, honey, are you sure about this? About him? No, Lucy had admitted. But I'm more sure about him than I've ever been about anything else in my life. Now, as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of orange and red, Lucy stood at the window and watched the pack gather in the central courtyard below. Hundreds of wolves, all waiting to see if their alpha would accept a trade or fight for his pride. She spotted Alicia in the crowd, standing near the front with several other high-ranking she-wolves. Even from a distance, Lucy could see the fury on Alicia's face, could imagine the hatred burning in those blue eyes. This is my fault, a small voice whispered in Lucy's mind. All of this chaos, all of this tension, it's because of me. But then she remembered Felix's words, you're not causing anything, this is Gordon's doing. The council room doors opened. Alpha Gordon emerged first, his expression unreadable. The crowd immediately fell silent. Every eye locked on their alpha. Felix followed a moment later, his massive frame radiating controlled power, his scarred face carved from stone. They stood facing each other in the center of the courtyard, and the tension was so thick Lucy could feel it even from her window 3 stories up. Felix Porter, Gordon said, his voice carrying across the silent courtyard. You've made me an offer. Territory in exchange for one of my Omegas. I have. And you've threatened to challenge me if I refuse. I have. Gordon's jaw clenched. Lucy could see him weighing his options, calculating the risks. A challenge would mean violence. Could mean his death, or severe injury. Could destabilize his pack standing with their allies. But accepting meant admitting that an Omega was valuable enough to trade for. Meant setting a precedent that could change everything about how the lowest-ranking pack members were treated. It meant admitting he'd been wrong about Lucy's worth. I've considered your offer carefully, Gordon said finally. And I've consulted with my beta and council members. The territory you're offering is indeed valuable, worth far more than any single pack member, especially an Omega, could provide in service. Lucy's heart sank. He was going to accept. He was going to trade her away like property, like cattle, but I refuse. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Lucy's hands flew to her mouth. What? You refuse? Felix repeated, his voice dangerously soft. I do. Gordon's expression was hard. Not because Lucy isn't worth the trade economically speaking, she isn't. But because I will not be threatened in my own pack house. I will not have a visiting alpha dictate terms to me. And I will not set a precedent that suggests Silvercrest doesn't value its own members enough to keep them, even if it means fighting me. Especially then. Gordon's eyes flashed. You want Lucy Macias? Then you'll have to take her by force. Challenge me, Alpha Porter. Let's settle this the old way. The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Lucy saw several pack members exchange worried glances. Saw the visiting alphas Thomas Lord and Allie Snell watching with calculating interest. Felix smiled, a sharp, predatory expression that made Lucy's wolf shiver. You're making a mistake, Gordon. Perhaps. But it's my mistake to make. Gordon began removing his shirt, preparing for the shift. These are my terms. We fight in wolf form until one of us submits or dies. If I win, you leave my territory and never contact Lucy Macias again. If you win, he paused, something that might have been respect crossing his face. If you win, you may take Lucy with you, with my blessing and the blessing of this pack. She'll be released from her bond to Silvercrest. Agreed. Both alphas began to shift. Lucy watched in horror as Felix's body contorted, bones cracking and reforming, fur erupting across his skin. His wolf was massive, bigger even than Gordon's, with midnight black fur, and those same burning amber eyes. Scars crisscrossed his pelt, evidence of countless battles. He was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Gordon's wolf was golden brown, powerful and proud, radiating the authority of an alpha who'd held his position unchallenged for nearly a decade. They circled each other slowly, both looking for an opening. And then Gordon attacked. The two wolves collided with bone-crushing force, their snarls echoing across the courtyard. The crowd pressed back, giving them space, but no one looked away. This was pack law. Pack justice. And everyone bore witness. Lucy couldn't breathe. She watched as Felix and Gordon tore into each other with savage precision. Blood sprayed across the packed dirt, fur flew. The sounds of their battle, the growls and snaps and impacts made her want to cover her ears and hide. But she couldn't look away. Felix was faster, she realized, more aggressive. He fought like someone who'd been fighting his entire life, every movement calculated for maximum damage. But Gordon was larger, more experienced, and he fought with the confidence of an alpha defending his territory. They were evenly matched in ways that made Lucy's stomach churn with fear. Please, she prayed to gods she didn't believe in. Please don't let him die. Please. The fight raged on for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Both wolves were bleeding now, their pelts matted with blood, some their own, some their opponents'. Then Felix made his move. He feinted left, and when Gordon followed, Felix twisted with impossible speed and locked his jaws around Gordon's throat. Not crushing, not yet, but the threat was clear. One wrong move, one moment of pressure, and Gordon would die. The courtyard went silent. Gordon's wolf went very still. For a long moment, nothing moved. The entire pack held its breath. Then, slowly, Gordon's wolf lowered itself to the ground in the unmistakable posture of submission. Felix held on for 3 more seconds, making his dominance absolutely clear before releasing his hold and stepping back. He'd won. The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and shocked gasps. Lucy's knees gave out, and she collapsed against the window frame, tears streaming down her face. He'd won. Felix had won. She was free. Both alphas shifted back to human form, their bodies covered in blood and already healing from the worst of their wounds. Gordon remained on his knees, his head bowed in submission. "You fought well," Felix said, his voice rough but respectful. "You're a worthy alpha, Gordon, but not worthy enough." Gordon looked up, and there was no hatred in his eyes, only grudging respect. "You've proven your claim, Felix Porter. Lucy Macias is yours, with Silvercrest's blessing." He paused. "Treat her well. She deserves better than what we gave her." Felix's expression softened slightly. "I intend to." He turned toward the pack house, toward the window where Lucy stood, and even from 3 stories away, she could see the triumph and relief in his amber eyes. "Come to me," those eyes said. "It's over. You're mine now." Lucy ran. She flew down the stairs, not caring about her injured shoulder, not caring who saw her or what they thought. She burst through the main doors and into the courtyard, and Felix was already moving toward her, his arms opening. She threw herself at him, and he caught her easily, lifting her off the ground as she wrapped her arms around his neck, and sobbed into his shoulder, relief and fear and joy all tangled together into something so overwhelming she couldn't speak. "I've got you," Felix murmured against her hair, his voice rough with emotion. "I've got you, Lucy. You're safe now. You're mine. I'm yours," she whispered back, and it felt like the most important promise she'd ever made. Around them, the pack watched in stunned silence. Some faces showed disapproval. Some showed shock. A few, very few, showed something that might have been happiness. But Lucy didn't care about any of them. For the first time in her life, she was being held by someone who'd fought for her, who'd risked everything for her, who saw her as valuable instead of worthless, someone who chose her. When Felix finally set her down, he kept one arm wrapped firmly around her waist, as if he couldn't bear to let her go. He turned to address the gathered crowd. Lucy Macias is now under the protection of the Nightshade Pack, he announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard with alpha command. Any wolf who wishes to harm her will answer to me personally. Is that understood? Murmured assents rippled through the crowd. Good. Felix's expression was hard, challenging anyone to disagree. We'll be leaving at dawn tomorrow. Lucy will have tonight to gather her belongings and say her goodbyes. There's nothing to gather, Lucy said quietly. I don't own anything worth taking. Felix's arm tightened around her waist. Then we leave tonight. I see no reason to stay in a place that never valued you. Gordon, now dressed and mostly healed, stepped forward. To Lucy's surprise, he approached them without hostility. Lucy, he said, and his voice was different, softer. I owe you an apology. I spent years treating you as invisible, because that's how I was taught to treat Omegas. But you proved yourself more valuable than half my warriors when you defended those cubs. And now, he glanced at Felix. Now I see that my prejudice cost my pack something precious. Lucy didn't know what to say. An apology from an alpha was rare enough. An apology to an Omega was unheard of. Thank you, Alpha, she managed. Gordon nodded, then turned to Felix. You'll make her your mate? If she'll have me, Felix said, looking down at Lucy with such open affection that her breath caught. Though I intend to court her properly first. She deserves that. She does. Gordon extended his hand. No hard feelings, Porter. You fought honorably. I respect that. Felix shook his hand. No hard feelings. You fought well yourself. As Gordon walked away, the crowd began to disperse, though Lucy could still feel eyes on them, some curious, some hostile, some simply shocked by everything that had transpired. Come on, Felix said gently. Let's get you cleaned up and ready to leave. The Nightshade Pack is a day's journey from here. I want to get you home. Home. The word echoed in Lucy's chest, foreign and precious. She was going home. Lucy's basement room felt smaller than ever as she stood in the doorway one last time. There was almost nothing to pack: a few changes of clothes, a worn hairbrush, a small wooden carving of a wolf that Naomi had given her years ago. The sum total of her existence fit into a single bag. Not much to show for 23 years, Lucy murmured. Felix, who'd been leaning against the doorframe watching her, pushed off and crossed to her side. You're starting fresh, Lucy. New pack, new life, new everything. I'm terrified, she admitted. I know. He pulled her against his chest, and Lucy let herself lean into his warmth. But you won't be alone. I'll be with you every step of the way, and my pack, they're going to love you, Lucy. I promise. How can you be sure? Because I'm their alpha, and what I say goes. Felix's smile was sharp. And if anyone has a problem with my choice of mate, they'll answer to me. There was a soft knock on the door. Naomi stood in the hallway, her eyes red from crying. I came to say goodbye, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Lucy pulled away from Felix and rushed to embrace her friend. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For being kind when no one else was. You deserve all the kindness in the world, honey. Naomi pulled back, cupping Lucy's face. And you. She turned to Felix, her expression fierce despite her tears. You take care of her, Alpha Porter. She's special. Don't you ever forget that. I won't, Felix said solemnly. You have my word. After Naomi left, Lucy took one last look around the basement room that had been her prison and her sanctuary for so many years. Ready? Felix asked softly. Lucy took a deep breath. Ready. They climbed the stairs together, Lucy's hand firmly clasped in Felix's, and walked through the pack house one final time. A few pack members watched them go, some with relief, some with something that might have been regret. Alicia was nowhere to be seen. Lucy was grateful for that small mercy. Outside, 2 wolves from the Nightshade Pack were waiting with horses. Felix's Beta and Gamma, apparently, come to escort their alpha home. They looked at Lucy with open curiosity but no hostility, which was more than she dared hope for. Felix helped her onto a horse, then mounted his own. As they rode away from the Silvercrest pack house, Lucy looked back one final time at the only home she'd ever known. She felt nothing, no sadness, no regret. Just a strange sense of lightness, like chains she'd been wearing her entire life had suddenly fallen away. "You okay?" Felix asked, guiding his horse closer to hers. Lucy turned to look at him, this alpha, who'd fought for her, who'd risked everything for her, who'd declared her valuable when everyone else had called her worthless. And she smiled. "I'm perfect," she said. And for the first time in her life, she meant it. Chapter 6, Home is Where They Fight for You. The journey to Nightshade territory took a full day of hard riding. Lucy had never been outside Silvercrest lands before. She'd never had reason to travel, never had permission to leave the pack house without explicit orders. Now, as they rode through dense forests and across rolling hills, she felt like she was seeing the world for the first time. Felix rode beside her the entire way, close enough that their legs occasionally brushed. He pointed out landmarks, as they passed a river that marked the border between territories, a clearing where his pack held seasonal gatherings, a massive oak tree that had supposedly stood for 300 years. "That's where I had my first shift," he told her, gesturing to a rocky outcrop. "I was 13. My father brought me here and told me I had to shift on my own or he'd leave me here overnight." Lucy's eyes widened. "That's cruel. That was my father." Felix's expression was neutral, but Lucy heard the old pain underneath. He believed in harsh methods, sink or swim, survive or die. "It made me strong, but it also made me." He trailed off, searching for words. "Made you what?" Lucy prompted gently. "Hard, cold, good at leading through fear rather than loyalty." Felix glanced at her, his amber eyes troubled. "It took me years to unlearn what he taught me. To realize that strength doesn't have to come with cruelty." Lucy reached out and touched his arm. "You're not cruel, Felix. You could have been. You had every reason to be. But you're not." He covered her hand with his, the gesture achingly tender. "That's because I finally found something worth being soft for." The words made Lucy's chest tight with emotion she didn't have names for. They rode in comfortable silence for a while. The Nightshade warriors Kurt Calhoun and Glenn Shepard. She'd learned scouting ahead to ensure the path was safe. Lucy found herself studying Felix when he wasn't looking, memorizing the way sunlight caught in his black hair, the way his scarred face looked almost peaceful when he thought no one was watching. This was real. This was happening. She was riding toward a new life with an alpha who'd fought for her. It still didn't feel quite real. As sunset painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, they crested a final hill, and Felix pointed ahead. "There," he said, his voice carrying unmistakable pride. Nightshade territory. Lucy's breath caught. The valley below was breathtaking. Dense forest gave way to cleared land where she could see buildings, a massive pack house that was easily 3 times the size of Silvercrest's, surrounded by smaller cabins and training facilities. A river cut through the center of the territory, its water glittering in the fading light. And everywhere she looked, she could see wolves, dozens of them, moving with purpose and confidence. "It's beautiful," Lucy whispered. "It's home." Felix's hand found hers again. "You're home now, Lucy." The weight of those words settled over her like a blanket, comforting and terrifying in equal measure. As they descended into the valley, Lucy noticed wolves beginning to gather. Word of their alpha's return must have spread, because by the time they reached the main pack house, at least 50 wolves were assembled in the courtyard, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. Felix dismounted first, then helped Lucy down, keeping one hand on her waist as he addressed his pack. "I've returned," he announced, his voice carrying the unmistakable ring of alpha command. "And I've brought someone with me. This is Lucy Macius, formerly of the Silvercrest pack. She is under my personal protection, and she will be treated with the respect due to my chosen mate." Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Mate?" someone called out. "But Alpha. She's an Omega," Felix finished, his voice hard. "Yes, I'm aware. Is that a problem?" The wolf who'd spoken, a large male with gray-streaked hair who looked to be in his 50s, stepped forward. "Alpha Felix, I mean no disrespect, but this is highly irregular. The pack elders have been encouraging you to choose a mate from suitable bloodlines." Strong females who can. I've chosen. Felix cut him off. Lucy is my choice, the only choice. Anyone who has an issue with that can take it up with me personally. In the ring, right now. Silence fell. No one moved to challenge him. Good. Felix's grip on Lucy tightened protectively. Lucy has been through enough. She's exhausted from travel. I expect everyone to give her space and time to adjust. Understood? Reluctant nods answered him. Felix guided Lucy through the crowd and into the pack house. The interior was stunning, all dark wood and stone, with high ceilings and large windows that let in natural light. It was elegant but functional, designed for a working pack, rather than just for show. Your room is this way, Felix said, leading her up a grand staircase to the second floor. My room? Lucy echoed, confused. Felix glanced at her, something vulnerable crossing his face. I meant what I said about courting you properly, Lucy. That means you get your own space. I'm not going to rush you into anything you're not ready for. He stopped in front of a door and pushed it open, revealing a bedroom that made Lucy's breath catch. It was easily 10 times the size of her basement room in Silvercrest. A massive bed dominated one wall, covered in soft blankets and pillows. Large windows overlooked the forest. There was a sitting area with comfortable chairs, a desk, a wardrobe that could fit more clothes than Lucy had ever owned, and everything smelled clean and fresh, and like possibility. This is mine? Lucy whispered, stepping inside slowly, afraid that if she moved too quickly, the illusion would shatter. All yours. Felix leaned against the doorframe, watching her with soft eyes. There's a bathroom through that door. The wardrobe is stocked with clothes I had my sister guess at your size. If anything doesn't fit, we'll get you more. Lucy turned to face him, tears stinging her eyes. Felix, this is too much. I don't deserve. Stop. He was across the room in 3 strides, his hands cupping her face. We're going to have to work on the way you talk about yourself, Lucy. You deserve this. You deserve so much more than this. And I'm going to spend every day proving it to you until you believe it. I don't know how to do this, Lucy admitted, her voice breaking. I don't know how to be anything other than an Omega who cleans and stays invisible. I don't know how to be my mate, Felix finished gently. Then we'll figure it out together. There's no rulebook, Lucy. We make this whatever we want it to be. What if I'm not good enough? What if your pack never accepts me? Then they'll learn too. Felix's expression was fierce. You stood between rogues and defenseless cubs, Lucy. You have the heart of a warrior even if your wolf is small. My pack values courage above all else. They'll see that in you eventually, I promise. He kissed her forehead, a gentle, chaste gesture that somehow felt more intimate than anything they'd shared before. Get some rest, he murmured. I'll have food sent up. Tomorrow, I'll start introducing you to pack members properly. But tonight, just breathe. You're safe here. After Felix left, Lucy stood in the center of her new room and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. 2 days ago, she'd been invisible, worthless. Trapped in a basement room, convinced she would live and die as nothing more than a servant. Now she was in Nightshade territory, in a room fit for royalty, promised to an alpha who'd fought for her. It was too much, too fast, too impossible. Lucy's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, her back against the bed, and finally let herself fall apart. She cried for the girl she'd been, for the years she'd spent believing she was worthless, for the fear that still whispered she didn't deserve any of this. But she also cried tears of relief, of hope, of the terrifying, fragile possibility that maybe, just maybe, her life could actually be different now. Lucy woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to cover and the sound of birds singing outside. For a disoriented moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory crashed back, and she sat up abruptly, her heart racing. Nightshade Pack, Felix's territory. This is real. Someone had left a tray of food on the desk while she slept. Fresh bread, fruit, cheese, and tea that was still warm. Lucy ate mechanically, her stomach churning with anxiety about what came next. She'd just finished when there was a knock on her door. Lucy. It's me, Felix's voice, muffled through the wood. Are you decent? Yes. Lucy called back, smoothing down her rumpled clothes self-consciously. Felix entered, carrying an armful of fabric. My sister Holly arrived this morning. She brought you clothes that should fit better than what I guessed at. He set them on the bed, then looked at Lucy properly. How did you sleep? Fine. Lucy lied. Felix's expression suggested he knew she was lying but wouldn't push. I thought we could have breakfast together. Then, if you're up for it, I'd like to show you around the territory. Help you start learning your way around. Okay. Lucy's voice came out smaller than she intended. Felix crossed to her, tilting her chin up with gentle fingers. Hey. I know this is overwhelming. But you're not alone in this, remember? I'm right here with you. I know. Lucy took a shaky breath. Everyone was staring yesterday. They all think I'm wrong for you. Weak. Unworthy. They think what they've been taught to think about Omegas, Felix corrected. But they don't know you yet. Give them time, Lucy. Let them see what I see. And what do you see? Felix's smile was soft and devastating. I see the strongest person I've ever met. I see someone who survived years of being told she was worthless, and still came out kind instead of bitter. I see someone who'd risk her life for cubs that weren't hers without a second thought. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. I see my mate. The words sent shivers down Lucy's spine. I'm not your mate yet. You said you wanted to court me properly. I did. I do. Felix's eyes darkened with heat. But make no mistake. Lucy, you're mine. Have been since the moment I saw you. The courting is just formality. My wolf already knows. Lucy's breath hitched. Her own wolf stirred inside her chest, responding to his words with eager agreement. Now, Felix said, his tone lightening deliberately. Get dressed in something comfortable. I'm taking you to meet the pack properly. An hour later, Lucy found herself walking through Nightshade territory with Felix at her side and her heart in her throat. The pack lands were even more impressive in daylight. Training yards where warriors sparred with lethal precision. Gardens where vegetables grew in neat rows. A schoolhouse where pack children studied. Everything was organized, functional, clearly well-maintained by wolves who took pride in their home. And everywhere they went, wolves stopped to stare. Felix introduced her to what felt like hundreds of pack members. Warriors who nodded respectfully but kept their distance. Mothers who looked skeptical. Elders who frowned openly. Children who simply stared with wide, curious eyes. This is Roy Pitts, my head warrior, Felix said, gesturing to a massive male with scars crisscrossing his arms. Roy, this is Lucy. Roy studied her with cold calculation. An Omega. My Omega, Felix corrected sharply. Of course, Alpha. Roy's tone suggested he didn't approve but wouldn't argue. Ma'am. The title felt wrong on Lucy's tongue, but she nodded politely. They moved through the territory, and the pattern repeated. Polite acknowledgement, thinly veiled disapproval, questions about her rank, her strength, her worthiness. By midday, Lucy was exhausted and fighting the urge to run back to her room and hide. I know this is hard, Felix murmured as they finally broke away from the crowds. But you're doing great, Lucy. I'm proud of you. They hate me, Lucy said flatly. They don't know you yet, Felix corrected. There's a difference. Give them time. What if time isn't enough? What if they never? A commotion near the training yard cut her off. Shouts of alarm. The sound of children screaming. Felix's entire body went rigid. Stay here, he ordered, already moving toward the noise. But Lucy was running too, her instincts screaming danger. They reached the training yard to find chaos. A young wolf couldn't be more than 8 years old, had apparently been playing too close to the weapons storage. A rack of swords had fallen, and one of the blades had come loose, now falling directly toward a group of cubs who'd been watching the adult warriors train. Lucy didn't think. She moved. Her body hit the cubs a fraction of a second before the sword would have, knocking them out of the path of the blade. She felt a searing pain across her back as the sword grazed her, tearing through her shirt and drawing blood. But the cubs were safe. For a moment, no one moved. The entire training yard was frozen in shock. Then Felix was there, pulling Lucy to her feet, his hands frantically checking her injury. Are you insane? His voice was rough with fear and anger. You could have been killed. The cubs, Lucy gasped, pain radiating through her back, are fine because of you. A new voice, female, sharp with authority. A woman who looked to be in her 40s strode forward, her expression stunned. She threw herself in front of falling steel to protect pack cubs she doesn't even know. That's what she does, Felix said, his voice tight. Lucy, we need to get you to the healer, now. I'm fine, Lucy protested weakly. You're bleeding all over the training yard. You're not fine. If Lucy's instinct to protect makes you believe in her worth, subscribe and stand with her as the pack learns what Felix already knows. Because Lucy deserves witnesses who won't look away when she proves herself. Comment. Do you think the Nightshade pack will finally see Lucy's value? Or will they still reject her as an Omega? As Felix swept her up in his arms and carried her toward the pack house, Lucy caught glimpses of the watching wolves. Their expressions had changed, shock replacing skepticism, something that might have been respect replacing disapproval. The cubs she'd saved were crying, their mother clutching them close, her eyes locked on Lucy with unmistakable gratitude. Thank you, the mother mouthed. Thank you. Lucy managed a weak smile before pain made her vision blur. I've got you, Felix murmured against her hair. Always, Lucy, I've got you. And as consciousness started to slip away, Lucy thought maybe, just maybe, she'd started to prove she belonged here after all. Chapter 7. The Luna Who Bled for Strangers. Lucy woke to the scent of herbs and antiseptic, and a dull throbbing pain across her upper back. She was in a room she didn't recognize, smaller than her bedroom, with shelves lined with jars and bottles and the distinctive smell of a healer's workspace. Afternoon light slanted through a single window, suggesting she'd been unconscious for several hours. Easy. A hand pressed gently against her shoulder, keeping her from sitting up too quickly. Your stitches are fresh. Don't tear them. Lucy turned her head to find an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. The pack healer, presumably. How bad is it? Lucy asked, her voice hoarse. Could have been much worse. The sword caught you across the shoulder blade deep enough to need stitching, but it missed anything vital. The healer's expression was assessing. You were lucky, or perhaps just incredibly foolish, depending on how you look at it. The cubs are perfectly fine, thanks to you. Their mother has been by 3 times already to thank you. Half the pack is talking about nothing else. The healer's mouth quirked into something that might have been approval. I'm Lenore Lyons, by the way, pack healer for the last 30 years. Lucy Macias. Oh, I know who you are. Lenore's eyes glinted with amusement. The Omega who caught our Alpha's heart, and then proceeded to prove she's not as weak as everyone assumed. You've caused quite the stir, young lady. Before Lucy could respond, the door burst open and Felix strode in, his face tight with worry. She's awake? His eyes found Lucy immediately, and some of the tension drained from his shoulders. Finally. You've been out for 4 hours. I passed out? Lucy asked, embarrassed. You lost a fair amount of blood. Your body needed rest to heal. Lenore stood, wiping her hands on her apron. She'll need to take it easy for a few days. No heavy lifting, no training. The wound should close properly within a week with her wolf's healing. I'll make sure she rests, Felix promised, already moving to Lucy's side. Lenore gave them both a knowing look. I'm sure you will. I'll leave you two alone. Lucy, if you experience any fever or if the pain worsens, send for me immediately. After the healer left, Felix sat carefully on the edge of the bed, his hand finding Lucy's and gripping it tightly. You scared the hell out of me, he said quietly. When I saw that sword falling toward you, I didn't think, Lucy admitted. I just reacted. The cubs were in danger and you threw yourself in front of a falling blade without hesitation. Again. Felix's voice was rough with emotion. Lucy, you can't keep risking your life like this. I didn't mean to. I know you didn't. That's what makes it so terrifying. Felix lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Your instinct is to protect others, even at the cost of your own safety. It's brave and selfless, and it's going to give me a heart attack. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for being who you are. Felix's amber eyes were intense. Just promise me you'll be more careful. I just got you, Lucy. I'm not ready to lose you. The raw vulnerability in his voice made Lucy's chest tight. I promise to try. I suppose that's all I can ask for. Felix's expression softened slightly. Though you should know what you did today changed things. The pack is talking, Lucy. And for the first time, they're not questioning your worth. They're questioning their own prejudices. Really? Really? Felix smiled. Tamara Fowler, the mother whose cubs you saved, has been telling anyone who'll listen that you're the bravest wolf she's ever met. Roy Pitts admitted that most warriors would have frozen. Even the pack elders are reconsidering their objections. Because I got hurt protecting cubs? Because you proved that strength isn't about rank or physical power. It's about courage and selflessness, and being willing to act when others hesitate. Felix's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. You're changing minds, Lucy. One act of bravery at a time. Lucy wanted to believe him, but years of being told she was worthless didn't disappear overnight, and doubt still gnawed at her. What if it's not enough? What if... A knock interrupted her. Alpha Felix? A young male voice called through the door. Sorry to disturb you, but there are pack members asking to see Lucy. To thank her. Felix looked at Lucy questioningly. Are you up for visitors? Lucy's instinct was to say no, to hide, to avoid the scrutiny of wolves who'd been judging her since she arrived. But something in Felix's expression, hope mixed with pride, made her nod. Okay, she said quietly. Felix opened the door to reveal what looked like half the pack crammed into the hallway outside the healer's workspace. At the front stood Tamara Fowler, clutching two small cubs who couldn't be more than 7 or 8 years old. Her eyes were red from crying, but her expression was fierce with gratitude. Luna Lucy, she said, using a title that made Lucy flinch. May we come in? I'm not. Lucy started to correct the Luna title, but Felix's hand squeezed hers warningly. Of course, Felix said instead. Please. Tamara entered with her cubs, both of whom were staring at Lucy with wide, awestruck eyes. These are my sons, Tamara said, her voice thick with emotion. Joey and Antonio. They wanted to thank you themselves for saving their lives today. The smaller cub, Joey, Lucy stepped forward hesitantly. Thank you, Miss Lucy, he said solemnly. Mama says you're a hero. That you got hurt because of us. I'm not a hero, Lucy said automatically. You are to them, Tamara interrupted, tears streaming down her face. You are to me. If you hadn't acted, if you'd been even a second slower. Her voice broke. My babies would be dead. You saved them, Luna. At risk to yourself. There's no greater gift you could have given me. Lucy didn't know what to say. She'd never been thanked like this before with such raw, genuine gratitude that it felt overwhelming. You're welcome, she managed finally. I'm just glad they're safe. Antonio, the older cub, pulled something from his pocket and held it out to Lucy. It was a roughly carved wooden wolf, clearly handmade, with uneven edges and a lopsided grin. I made this for you, he said shyly. Because you're brave like a wolf even though you're an Omega. The words should have stung, that casual reminder of her rank. But coming from this cub, said with such innocent honesty, they just made Lucy smile. Thank you, Antonio. It's beautiful. After Tamara and her cubs left, more pack members filed through. Warriors who nodded with newfound respect. Mothers who thanked her for protecting the pack's children. Even a few of the elders, who admitted they'd been wrong to judge her so quickly. By the time the last visitor left, Lucy was exhausted and overwhelmed and more confused than ever. They called me Luna, she said to Felix once they were alone again. But we're not even officially mated yet. No, Felix agreed. But in their eyes, you're already mine. Already their Luna. Today just confirmed what I've known all along. You're exactly what this pack needs. How can you say that? I'm weak. I can barely shift. You're strong in the ways that matter most. Felix's voice was firm. Physical power is easy, Lucy. Any wolf can be taught to fight. But courage? Selflessness? The instinct to protect others without thought for yourself? That can't be taught. You either have it or you don't. And you have it in abundance. Lucy wanted to argue, but she was too tired. The pain medication Lenore had given her was making her drowsy. and Felix's presence beside her was warm and comforting. "Rest," Felix murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I'll be right here. You don't have to stay. You have alpha duties. My most important duty right now is making sure my mate recovers." Felix's smile was gentle. "Everything else can wait." Lucy's eyes were already drifting closed. "Not your mate yet," she mumbled. "Soon," Felix promised. Very soon. The next few days passed in a blur of healing and introductions. Lenore had been right about Lucy's wolf healing by the third day. Her wound had closed to a pink scar, and the pain had faded to a dull ache. Felix had been frustratingly protective, refusing to let her do anything more strenuous than walking around her room. "I'm not made of glass," Lucy protested on the fourth morning, when Felix intercepted her attempt to help in the pack kitchens. "No, you're made of stubbornness and terrible self-preservation instincts," Felix countered, steering her back toward the main house. "Lenore said a week of rest. It's been 4 days. I'm going crazy just sitting around. I need to be useful." "You are useful. You're recovering." Felix's expression softened. "Lucy, you spent your entire life in Silvercrest working yourself to exhaustion. Let yourself rest for once. Let yourself be cared for." The words landed in her chest with unexpected weight. Let yourself be cared for. She'd never been cared for before. Not really. The concept was so foreign she didn't know how to accept it. "I don't know how to just be," Lucy admitted quietly. "Without work, without being useful, I don't know what I'm for." Felix stopped walking and turned to face her fully, his hands cupping her face with infinite gentleness. "You're not for anything, Lucy. You're not a tool or a servant or a means to an end. You're a person, my person. And your value has nothing to do with how much work you can do or how useful you can be. You're valuable simply because you exist." Tears stung Lucy's eyes. "I don't know how to believe that. Then I'll spend every day proving it to you until you do." Felix kissed her softly, a promise sealed with touch. "Starting now. Come with me. I want to show you something." He led her through the packlands, past the training yards and gardens, deep into the forest that bordered Nightshade territory. They walked for 20 minutes, Felix holding her hand the entire way, until they reached a clearing Lucy had never seen before. It was breathtaking. A small waterfall cascaded into a crystal-clear pool, surrounded by wildflowers and moss-covered rocks. Sunlight filtered through the canopy overhead, making the water sparkle like diamonds. "This is my favorite place in all of Nightshade territory," Felix said softly. "I come here when I need to think, when I need peace. I've never brought anyone else here before." Lucy looked at him, stunned. "Why me?" "Because I want to share everything with you. The good and the bad, the public and the private, the alpha everyone sees and the man only you get to know." Felix's expression was vulnerable in a way she'd rarely seen. "I told you before, when I look at you, I see home. This place has always felt like home to me. And now I want it to be our place." Lucy's throat was too tight to speak. Instead, she stepped into his arms and let herself be held, let herself feel safe and valued and cherished in a way she'd never experienced before. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest. "For seeing me, for choosing me, for fighting for me. Always, Lucy, always." They stayed in the clearing for hours, talking and laughing and simply existing together without the weight of pack expectations or judgment. Felix told her stories about growing up in Nightshade, about the challenges he'd faced as a young alpha, about his hopes for the pack's future. And Lucy slowly, hesitantly began to tell him about her own past, about growing up invisible, about learning to accept cruelty as normal, about the loneliness that had been her constant companion for 23 years. "I used to dream about being seen," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "About someone looking at me and seeing something worth caring about. But I never actually believed it would happen." "It happened," Felix said firmly. "I see you, Lucy, every part of you, and I'm never looking away." As the sun began to set, painting the clearing in shades of gold and amber, Felix pulled Lucy close and kissed her deeper this time, more certain, full of promise and heat and barely contained desire. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Felix rested his forehead against hers. "I want to make this official," he said, his voice rough. "I want to complete the mating bond." Make you my Luna in truth, not just in the pack's eyes. But only when you're ready, Lucy. Only when you want it too. Lucy's heart was racing, her wolf singing with joy at the thought of being truly his. I'm ready, she whispered. I've been ready since you first looked at me like I mattered. Felix's smile was brilliant and devastating. Then we'll make it official. Tomorrow night, under the full moon, I'll claim you in front of the entire pack, and no one will ever question your place at my side again. Tomorrow? Lucy's voice came out slightly panicked. Too fast? No. Lucy took a shaky breath. I'm terrified. What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't be the Luna they need? Then we'll figure it out together. Felix kissed her again, soft and reassuring. You're already good enough, Lucy. More than good enough. Tomorrow, I'm just going to make sure everyone else knows it too. News of the upcoming mating ceremony spread through the pack like wildfire. Lucy spent the next day in a state of nervous anxiety, being fussed over by Holly McDaniel, Felix's sister, who'd arrived specifically to help Lucy prepare for the ceremony. You're going to be beautiful, Holly said, draping a length of silvery fabric across Lucy's shoulders. This dress was our mother's. She wore it when she mated with our father. Felix wanted you to have it. The gesture made Lucy's eyes sting with tears. Holly, I can't, this is too much. Nonsense. You're going to be Luna. You deserve something special. Holly's expression was warm and genuine. And between you and me, I'm glad Felix chose you. He's been so isolated, so closed off since he became alpha. But when he looks at you, she smiled, he looks alive again. I'm terrified I'm going to disappoint him. You won't. Holly squeezed her shoulder. I saw what you did for Tamara's cubs. That's the kind of Luna this pack needs, someone who protects without hesitation. Someone who leads with her heart. As evening approached, Lucy found herself standing in front of a mirror, barely recognizing her own reflection. The dress was beautiful, simple, but elegant, the silvery fabric hugging her curves and making her dark hair and eyes stand out. Holly had braided flowers into her hair, and for the first time in her life, Lucy didn't look invisible. She looked like someone who mattered. Ready? Felix's voice came from the doorway. Lucy turned to find him watching her with such open adoration that her breath caught. He was dressed formally, dark pants and a white shirt that emphasized his powerful build, his black hair pulled back to show the strong lines of his scarred face. He looked every inch the alpha, powerful and commanding and utterly magnificent. You're beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. So are you, Lucy whispered. Felix crossed to her and took her hands. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. Good. His smile was soft. Because I'm not letting you go, Lucy Macias. Not now. Not ever. He led her outside, where the entire Nightshade pack had gathered in the central courtyard. Hundreds of wolves, all watching as their alpha brought his chosen mate to stand before them. The full moon hung heavy and bright overhead, bathing everything in silver light. Felix raised his voice to address the pack. Tonight, I claim Lucy Macias as my mate, and your Luna. She has proven herself worthy through courage and selflessness. She has earned her place at my side. Does anyone challenge this claim? Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Tamara Fowler stepped forward. I don't challenge. I celebrate. Luna Lucy saved my cubs. She has my loyalty and my gratitude. And mine, Roy Pitts added, stepping forward as well. She's proven herself brave. That's all that matters. One by one, pack members stepped forward, voicing their acceptance. Not everyone, Lucy noticed. Some wolves remained silent, their expressions still skeptical. But enough spoke that it was clear the pack was accepting her. Felix turned to Lucy, his amber eyes blazing in the moonlight. Do you, Lucy Macias, accept me as your mate? Do you accept the responsibility of being Luna to this pack? Lucy's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I do. Then I claim you. Felix pulled her close and kissed her deep and possessive and full of promise. Mine, he growled against her lips, his wolf surging forward. My mate. My Luna. Mine. Yours, Lucy whispered back. Always yours. The mating bond snapped into place like a physical thing, a golden thread connecting their souls, letting her feel Felix's emotions as clearly as her own. His love, his pride, his absolute certainty that she belonged with him. And for the first time in her life, Lucy felt it too. She belonged. The pack erupted in howls of celebration, their voices rising to meet the full moon, welcoming their new Luna. And Lucy Macias, former Omega, invisible no more, let herself believe that maybe, finally, she was home. Chapter 8. 5 Reasons to Defy the World. The morning after the mating ceremony, Lucy woke wrapped in Felix's arms, the bond between them humming with warmth and contentment. She'd spent her first night as Luna in Felix's bed, their bed now, and while nothing beyond kissing and holding had happened, it had felt perfect. Felix had been patient and gentle, letting Lucy set the pace, seeming content just to have her close. Now, with dawn light streaming through the windows, Lucy studied her mate's sleeping face. The harsh lines softened in sleep, the scar across his jaw less intimidating. He looked younger, somehow, more vulnerable. "Mine," her wolf whispered with satisfaction. "Our mate." The bond let her feel his emotions even while he slept, a deep contentment, an underlying protectiveness, and something darker that she couldn't quite identify. Old pain, maybe. Memories that haunted even his dreams. "You're staring," Felix murmured without opening his eyes, his lips curving into a smile. Lucy flushed. "How did you know?" "I can feel you through the bond. Your curiosity. Your affection." He opened his eyes, amber meeting brown. "Your anxiety." "I'm not anxious." "You're terrified." Felix pulled her closer, his hand stroking down her back. "I can feel it, Lucy. You don't have to hide from me anymore." Lucy buried her face against his chest. "I don't know how to be a Luna. Everyone's going to expect things from me, leadership, strength, confidence, and I don't have any of that." "Yes, you do. You've been leading through example since you got here." Felix's voice was firm. "But if you're worried about the practical aspects, we'll handle that too. Today, I want you to meet with Evelyn Rocha. She's been helping coordinate pack activities while I've been without a Luna. She can show you the day-to-day responsibilities. What if I mess up? Then we fix it together." Felix tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You're not alone in this, Lucy. Stop acting like you have to be perfect. You just have to try." Before Lucy could respond, there was an urgent knock on the door. "Alpha Felix," Kurt Calhoun's voice, tight with concern. "We have a situation. The Northern Border Patrol found something." Felix was out of bed instantly, his alpha instincts overriding everything else. "What kind of something?" "You need to see it yourself, sir. And," Kurt hesitated, "you should bring Luna, Lucy." Lucy's stomach clenched with dread, but she got dressed quickly in practical clothes while Felix did the same. Within 10 minutes, they were riding toward the northern border with Kurt and several warriors. The journey took an hour. As they approached the border, Lucy could smell it, the acrid, wrong scent of rogues. But there was something else underneath. Something that made her wolf whine with distress. They found the patrol at the edge of Nightshade territory, standing in a tight circle around something on the ground. "Alpha," Glenn Shepard said as Felix dismounted. "We found them about an hour ago. They were trying to cross into our lands." Felix pushed through the circle, and Lucy followed. What she saw made her blood run cold. 5 cubs, none older than 10, huddled together in a makeshift shelter of branches and leaves. They were filthy, malnourished, their clothes little more than rags, and they stared at the surrounding warriors with the kind of terror that came from experience with cruelty. "They're orphans," Glenn explained quietly. "Their pack was attacked by rogues 3 weeks ago. Everyone was killed except these 5. They've been surviving on their own since then." Lucy's heart shattered. She moved forward before thinking, approaching the cubs slowly with her hands visible and non-threatening. The warriors started to protest, but Felix held up a hand, stopping them. "It's okay," Lucy said softly, crouching down to the cub's level. "No one's going to hurt you, I promise." The largest cub, a girl with matted blonde hair and fierce green eyes, positioned herself in front of the others protectively. "Stay back. We're not weak. We'll fight if we have to. I know you're not weak." Lucy kept her voice gentle. "Anyone who's survived 3 weeks alone is incredibly strong, but you're also exhausted and hungry and hurt, and I want to help." "Why?" The girl's voice cracked. "We're nobodies, orphans with no pack. Why would you help us?" Because you're cubs who need protection. That's the only reason I need. Lucy extended her hand slowly. My name is Lucy. I'm Luna of the Nightshade Pack. And if you'll let me, I want to take you somewhere safe. Somewhere with food and warmth and people who'll care for you. The girl stared at Lucy's hand like it might be a trap. You're lying. Alphas don't care about orphans. We're worthless. The words hit Lucy like a physical blow because she'd heard them before, directed at herself, over and over for 23 years. You're not worthless, Lucy said, her voice fierce with conviction. You're survivors, you're brave, you're valuable simply because you exist, and anyone who ever told you different was wrong. Something in the girl's expression cracked. You mean it? I mean it. Slowly, hesitantly, the girl reached out and took Lucy's hand. The other 4 cubs followed her lead, emerging from their shelter on shaky legs. Lucy could see now how badly they were hurt, cuts and bruises, swollen joints from malnutrition, the hollow-eyed exhaustion of trauma. Felix, Lucy said, turning to her mate. We're taking them home. Of course we are. Felix's voice was rough with emotion. Warriors, mount up. We're escorting these cubs back to the pack house. Kurt, ride ahead and tell Lenore to prepare the healing rooms. Glenn, send word to Evelyn we're going to need clothes, food, and sleeping arrangements for 5 new pack members. New pack members? Glenn echoed, surprised. Alpha, they're not Nightshade wolves. They're cubs who need protection. Felix cut him off sharply. Which makes them our responsibility. Is that understood? Yes, Alpha. The ride back to Packlands was slow, accommodating the cubs' exhaustion. Lucy rode with the smallest one, a boy who couldn't be more than 6, cradled in her arms. He'd fallen asleep almost immediately, his small body going limp with relief. Through the bond, she felt Felix's pride and approval washing over her like warm sunlight. You're a natural, he sent through their connection. You were meant for this, Lucy. By the time they reached the pack house, word had spread. Pack members gathered to watch as Lucy and Felix brought the orphaned cubs inside. Some expressions showed compassion, others showed concern. 5 more mouths to feed, 5 more wolves to integrate, 5 potential problems. But no one argued with their alpha's decision. Lenore was waiting with assistance, immediately taking charge of the cubs' medical care. Lucy stayed with them through the examinations, holding hands and offering reassurance as the healer cleaned wounds and assessed injuries. They're malnourished and dehydrated, Lenore reported quietly to Lucy and Felix. But nothing that time and good food won't fix. The real damage is psychological. These cubs have been traumatized. They'll need patience and care. They'll have it, Lucy promised. The blonde girl, Sarah Suarez, Lucy learned, refused to let the other cubs out of her sight. She watched the healer work with fierce protectiveness, ready to attack if anyone made a move she didn't like. You remind me of someone, Lucy told her softly. Who? Me. Lucy smiled. When I was younger, I learned that if I didn't protect myself, no one else would. That if I didn't fight, I'd be crushed. You've learned the same lessons. Sarah's expression was guarded. And now you can learn new ones. Like how to let other people help carry the weight. Like how to trust that you're safe. Lucy took Sarah's hand. I know it's scary. I know it feels impossible. But I promise you you're safe here. All of you. How can you promise that? Because I'm Luna. And I say so. Lucy's voice carried a confidence she didn't entirely feel. And no one in this pack will hurt you while I'm here to stop them. Sarah studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. We'll try. The next week tested Lucy in ways she hadn't anticipated. The 5 orphaned cubs, Sarah, Janny Copeland, Terry Brown, Neva Bass, and little Alfredo Ferguson, were terrified and traumatized. They flinched at loud noises. They hoarded food. They woke screaming from nightmares almost every night. And they clung to Lucy like she was their lifeline. She spent hours with them each day, slowly earning their trust. She helped them settle into rooms in the pack house. She sat with them during meals, coaxing them to eat. She held them when they cried and reassured them when they panicked. It was exhausting and heartbreaking, and the most important thing Lucy had ever done. You're spreading yourself too thin, Evelyn Rocha warned one afternoon. finding Lucy in the cub's wing for the third time that day. Evelyn was a beta in her 50s, efficient and no-nonsense, who'd been running pack logistics for years. "You're Luna now. You have other responsibilities beyond 5 orphaned cubs." "They need me," Lucy said, exhaustion evident in her voice. "They need consistency and care, which they can get from other pack members. You need to learn how to delegate, Lucy. A Luna can't do everything herself. I can't just abandon them. They've been abandoned enough." Evelyn's expression softened. "I'm not suggesting you abandon them. I'm suggesting you build them a support system, instead of trying to be everything to them alone. Assign caretakers. Establish routines. Integrate them into pack life, so they're not dependent solely on you." The words made sense, but they rubbed against every instinct Lucy had developed over the years. She'd learned to rely only on herself, to trust only herself. Letting others help felt like weakness. But maybe that was another lesson she needed to learn. "Okay," Lucy said finally. "Help me figure out how." Together, Lucy and Evelyn created a plan. They assigned Tamara Fowler, who'd been so grateful for Lucy saving her own cubs, as the primary caretaker. They established schedules that would slowly integrate the orphans into pack routines. They created support systems that would allow Lucy to be involved without being solely responsible. It worked better than Lucy had dared hope. The cubs responded well to Tamara's maternal care. They began making friends with other pack children. Slowly. So slowly they started to relax, to believe they were actually safe. And Lucy found herself with time to learn the other aspects of being Luna. Evelyn became her guide, showing her how to coordinate pack activities, how to mediate disputes, how to manage resources. It was overwhelming and complicated, and nothing like anything Lucy had ever done before. But she threw herself into it with the same determination she'd brought to surviving Silvercrest. 2 weeks after finding the cubs, Lucy was reviewing food stores with Evelyn when Roy Pitts appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "Luna, Lucy, we have a problem." Lucy's stomach clenched. "What kind of problem?" "The cubs' old pack, or what's left of it. Survivors have been found. They're claiming the 5 orphans belong to them, and demanding we return them immediately." The world seemed to tilt. "No," Lucy said immediately. "Those cubs are under Nightshade protection now. They're ours." That's what Alpha Felix told them. But they're threatening to bring the issue before the regional council. They're claiming we kidnapped pack members from their territory. We didn't kidnap anyone. We saved them from dying alone in the woods. "I know that, Luna. But legally, cubs belong to their birth pack, unless formally released or adopted by another pack. And these survivors are refusing to release them." Lucy's hands were shaking with rage and fear. "Where's Felix?" "Dealing with the survivors now. He sent me to tell you there's going to be a formal hearing tomorrow, before the regional council. They'll decide who has rightful claim to the cubs. Can we win?" Roy's expression was troubled. "I don't know, Luna. Pack law favors birth packs in custody disputes. We'd have to prove that returning the cubs would be harmful. That's a high bar." After Roy left, Lucy stood frozen in the pack office, her mind racing. She couldn't let those cubs go back. She couldn't. They'd just started feeling safe, just started healing. Sending them back to strangers who'd let them survive alone for 3 weeks, it would destroy them. Through the bond, she felt Felix approaching before she saw him. A moment later, he entered the office, his expression dark. "You heard," he said. "Roy told me." Lucy turned to face him. "Felix, we can't let them take the cubs. We can't." "I know." Felix pulled her into his arms, and she could feel his frustration and anger through the bond. "I'm going to fight this, Lucy. I promise. But I need you to prepare yourself. We might lose. Pack law isn't on our side. Then we change pack law. It's not that simple." "Why not?" "You're Alpha. Regional councils respect your opinion. If you stand up and say that pack law needs to protect cubs better, that birth packs shouldn't automatically get custody if they've been negligent." "That's exactly what I plan to argue," Felix interrupted. "But Lucy, the council is made up of traditional alphas. Alphas who value pack loyalty and bloodlines above individual welfare, convincing them to change centuries of precedent." He shook his head. "It's going to be an uphill battle." Lucy pulled back, something fierce and determined burning in her chest. "Then I'll help you fight it," I'll testify. I'll tell them what those cubs have been through, what they need, why sending them back would be cruel. Felix's expression shifted into something between pride and concern. Lucy, if you testify, you'll be putting yourself and our pack under intense scrutiny. Every alpha on that council will question your judgment, your authority, your worth as Luna. They'll use your rank against you, argue that an Omega Luna doesn't understand pack dynamics. I don't care. You should care. They can be vicious. Let them be vicious. Lucy's voice was steady, despite the fear racing through her veins. Those cubs are worth fighting for. Even if it means putting myself on trial. Even if it means every alpha in the region thinks I'm weak or foolish or overstepping. I won't abandon them, Felix. I won't. Felix stared at her for a long moment, his amber eyes blazing with emotion she could feel echoing through the bond. Pride, love, fear, and determination, all tangled together. You're incredible, he said finally. Absolutely incredible. And terrifying. And I love you so much it scares me. The words the first time he'd said them out loud made Lucy's breath catch. I love you too, she whispered. Which is why I need you to let me do this. Let me be the Luna these cubs need, even if it's dangerous. Felix kissed her deep and desperate and full of promise. Then we do this together. Tomorrow, we stand before the regional council, and we fight for those cubs like our lives depend on it. Together, Lucy agreed. Through the bond, she felt Felix's absolute certainty that she was going to be spectacular. She only hoped he was right. Chapter 9. When the weak speak truth to power. The regional council met in neutral territory, a massive stone building that had stood for centuries, designed specifically for interpack negotiations and disputes. Lucy had never seen anything like it. The council chamber was enormous, with high vaulted ceilings and walls covered in pack sigils dating back generations. At the front of the room sat 7 raised seats where the regional alphas would preside, and below them, witness stands and presentation areas. It was intimidating by design, meant to remind everyone who entered of the weight of pack law and tradition. Lucy's hands were shaking as Felix led her inside, but she forced herself to keep her chin up, her shoulders back. She was Luna of the Nightshade Pack. She belonged here, even if every instinct screamed that she didn't. The cubs were being kept at the pack house with Tamara, spared from witnessing this confrontation. Sarah had begged to come, to speak on their own behalf, but Lucy had refused. They'd been through enough trauma without adding this. Whatever happens today, I'll protect them, Lucy had promised. I won't let you be hurt again. Sarah had looked at her with those fierce green eyes and said, You're the bravest Luna I've ever heard of. Lucy held on to those words now as she took her seat beside Felix in the Nightshade section. Across the chamber she could see them, the survivors from the cubs' original pack, the Ashwood. No, wait. Lucy's mind stumbled. The survivors from the cubs' original pack, the Crimson Veil pack. There were only 4 of them, an older alpha named Gordon. No, that wasn't right either. An older alpha named Andrew Elder, different Andrew from Silvercrest. Lucy reminded herself, and 3 warriors who looked uncomfortable and guilty. They should look guilty, Lucy thought with fierce anger. They'd abandoned 5 cubs to the wilderness. Let them think they were alone and worthless, and would die that way. The regional council filed in. 7 alphas representing the most powerful packs in the region. Lucy recognized some of them from the gathering at Silvercrest, Thomas Lord, and Ali Snell among them. The others were strangers, but their dominance was unmistakable, filling the chamber until Lucy's wolf wanted to bare its throat in submission. She refused. She was Luna. She would not bow. This council is called to order, announced the head alpha, a massive male named Lucas Harding from the Iron Ridge Pack. We are here to adjudicate a custody dispute regarding 5 orphaned cubs currently under the protection of the Nightshade Pack. Alpha Elder, you may present your case. Andrew Elder stood, his expression grave. Thank you, Council. 3 weeks ago, the Crimson Veil Pack was attacked by a large force of rogues. The assault was brutal and unexpected. We lost 23 pack members, including our Alpha and Luna. Murmurs of sympathy rippled through the chamber. In the chaos, 5 cubs were separated from the survivors, Andrew continued. We searched for days but found no trace. We feared they had been killed along with the others. But now we learn that the Nightshade Pack has taken them in without informing us, without following proper protocol for custody transfers. We demand the return of our pack members. And why should we return cubs you abandoned? Felix's voice cut through the chamber like a blade as he stood. Your pack left those children to die. They survived for 3 weeks, completely alone, malnourished, traumatized, believing no one cared enough to look for them. We didn't abandon them, Andrew shot back. We searched. But we also had to deal with our own wounded, our own dead. Resources were limited. Resources? Felix's voice was dangerously soft. You're telling this council that 5 cubs weren't worth the resources needed to find them? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. Felix turned to address the council directly. Honorable Alphas, I submit that Crimson Veil forfeited their right to these cubs the moment they stopped searching, the moment they decided their own survival was more important than 5 children's lives. Lucas Harding raised a hand for silence. Alpha Felix, while your passion is noted, pack law is clear. Cubs belong to their birth pack, unless formally released or proven to be in danger from said pack. Negligence during a crisis is not the same as deliberate harm, isn't it? Lucy's voice rang out before she could stop herself. The entire chamber went silent. Lucy stood, her heart hammering, feeling every eye in the room lock onto her. Through the bond, she felt Felix's support and concern in equal measure. Lucy, Lucas said, his tone neutral but warning. You wish to address the council? I do. Lucy's voice was steadier than she felt. Because I've lived what those cubs lived. I know what it feels like to believe you're worthless, to believe no one cares if you live or die, to survive on nothing but stubbornness and fear. With respect, Luna, your personal experiences are exactly relevant, Lucy interrupted, and several Alphas' eyes widened at her audacity. I was an Omega in my birth pack, the lowest rank, treated as invisible and worthless my entire life. And if you'd asked any wolf in that pack whether they were deliberately harming me, they would have said no, they were just following tradition. Just maintaining order, just doing what had always been done. She took a breath, forcing herself to continue. But negligence is harm, invisibility is harm, being treated as less than, as not worth the effort, not worth the resources that is harm. And those 5 cubs learned the same lesson I learned. They learned that they don't matter, that they're disposable. Lucy, Andrew Elder said, his voice tight. We never intended. Your intentions don't matter. Lucy's voice rose with passion. Those cubs spent 3 weeks believing they'd been abandoned, believing they were going to die alone. Do you know what Sarah told me when I found them? She said, we're nobodies. A 10-year-old child who'd survived 3 weeks of hell believed she was nobody because that's what your pack taught her. The chamber was silent. Lucy turned back to the council, her hands clenched into fists. Pack law says cubs belong to their birth pack. But what about when the birth pack fails them? What about when tradition and protocol matter more than children's lives? What about when following the rules means sending traumatized cubs back to people who've already proven they won't prioritize them? Lucy, Lucas Harding said carefully. You're asking us to overturn centuries of pack law based on emotion rather than precedent. I'm asking you to have compassion. To recognize that pack law should protect the vulnerable, not trap them in situations that harm them. Lucy's voice was fierce. And if it doesn't do that, if our laws prioritize pack loyalty over individual welfare, then maybe our laws are wrong. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. That's enough, Allie Snell said sharply. Lucy, you forget yourself. You're arguing against the very foundations of pack structure. No, Felix interjected, standing beside Lucy. She's arguing for evolution. For recognizing that strength isn't just about dominance and bloodlines. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. About doing what's right even when it's hard. Alpha Felix. Thomas Lord spoke for the first time, his voice measured. You've always been a progressive leader, but what you're suggesting, allowing cubs to be removed from their birth pack based on subjective assessments of care quality, it sets a dangerous precedent. Who decides what constitutes adequate care? Who has the authority to judge another pack's actions? In this case? Felix's voice was hard. Anyone with eyes. Those cubs were found alone, starving and terrified. That's not subjective, That's objective failure. If Lucy's courage to challenge pack law makes your heart race, subscribe so you never miss a moment of her fight to protect the vulnerable. Because stories like these deserve an audience that refuses to look away when the powerful are challenged. Comment: do you think the council will side with tradition or with compassion? But failure during crisis, Lucas Harding said slowly, is different from intentional neglect. Alpha Elder, did your pack deliberately abandon these cubs? Of course not, Andrew said firmly. We were overwhelmed. We made difficult choices in impossible circumstances. But we never stopped caring about those children. We grieved them as lost, not discarded. Yet you didn't continue searching, Lucy pointed out. You grieved and moved on. You rebuilt your pack and your lives while those cubs were still out there. Still surviving. Still waiting for someone to care enough to find them. What would you have had us do? Andrew's voice rose with frustration. We lost our Alpha and Luna. We had wounded who needed care. We had a pack to rebuild. You couldn't spare 5 people to keep searching, Lucy challenged. You couldn't ask neighboring packs for assistance? You couldn't do anything except give up? Andrew's jaw clenched. You don't understand the position we were in. I understand perfectly. You made a choice. You chose the pack's survival over 5 cubs' lives. And now you want them back, not because you love them, not because you prioritize them, but because pack law says they're yours. This is outrageous. One of the other council alphas, a female named Vera Gallegos, interjected. Luna Lucy, you're being incredibly disrespectful to Alpha Elder and his pack. They suffered a tragedy. They made difficult decisions. That doesn't make them villains. I never said they were villains, Lucy replied. I said they failed those cubs. There's a difference. Good people can fail. Good packs can make terrible choices. But that doesn't mean we should compound the failure by forcing traumatized children back into a situation that's already harmed them. Lucas Harding leaned back in his seat, studying Lucy with sharp eyes. Luna Lucy, let me ask you directly, if we rule in favor of Crimson Veil, what do you believe will happen to these cubs? Lucy's throat tightened. They'll believe the lesson they already learned, that they don't matter, that they're disposable, that no one will fight for them when it counts. They'll lose the fragile trust they've started building. They'll lose hope. And if we rule in favor of Nightshade, they'll learn that they're valuable, that they're worth fighting for. That home isn't about bloodlines or birth packs, it's about safety and love and being seen as precious. Lucy's voice cracked slightly. They'll learn the lesson I wish I'd learned as a child. That they deserve better. Silence filled the chamber for a long moment. Then Thomas Lord spoke. Alpha Felix, if the council rules in your favor, what are your intentions for these cubs? Will they be formally adopted into Nightshade? Given full pack membership? They will, Felix said immediately. Full membership, with all rights and protections. They'll be Nightshade wolves in truth, not just in name. And you, Luna Lucy? Thomas asked. What role do you intend to play in their lives? Whatever role they need me to play, Lucy said, honestly. Guardian. Protector. Someone who makes sure they never feel invisible or worthless again. Lucas Harding exchanged glances with the other council members. After a moment of silent communication, he nodded. This council will deliberate. Alpha Felix, Alpha Elder. And Luna Lucy, you may wait outside while we discuss. The next 30 minutes were the longest of Lucy's life. She paced the corridor outside the council chamber, while Felix watched her with concerned eyes. Andrew Elder and his warriors waited on the opposite side, pointedly avoiding eye contact. You did well in there, Felix said quietly, pulling Lucy close. You were magnificent. I was terrified. You were brave. There's a difference. Felix kissed her forehead. Whatever they decide, Lucy. You fought for those cubs. You gave them a voice. That matters. It won't matter if they send them back. Then we'll appeal. We'll fight this all the way to the National Council if we have to. I'm not giving up on them. Neither are you. Through the bond, Lucy felt his absolute determination. It steadied her, gave her strength when her own was wavering. The council chamber doors opened. The council has reached a decision, Lucas Harding announced. All parties may return. Lucy's hands were shaking as she took her seat again. Felix gripped one hand tightly, his presence a solid anchor. Lucas Harding stood, his expression grave. This council has reviewed the arguments presented by both Nightshade and Crimson Veil. We've considered pack law, precedent, and the specific circumstances of this case. Our decision is as follows. He paused, and Lucy's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. While we acknowledge that Crimson Veil Pack suffered tremendous losses and made difficult choices during crisis, we cannot ignore the fact that 5 cubs were left unprotected for 3 weeks. Whether intentional or not, this constitutes a failure of pack duty to protect its youngest members. Andrew Elder's face went pale. Furthermore, Lucas continued, Luna Lucy's arguments regarding the cubs' emotional welfare and the importance of stable, protective environments have merit. Pack law exists to strengthen and protect wolves, not to trap them in harmful situations. Hope surged in Lucy's chest. Therefore this council rules in favor of the Nightshade Pack. The 5 orphaned cubs, Sarah Suarez, Janny Copeland, Terry Brown, Neva Bass, and Alfredo Ferguson, are hereby released from Crimson Veil Pack and granted full membership in the Nightshade Pack, with all rights and protections therein. Lucy's knees nearly gave out with relief. Felix caught her, his own emotions blazing through the bond triumph, pride, fierce joy. However, Lucas added, his voice hardening, let this serve as notice to all packs in this region. The council expects higher standards of care for vulnerable pack members, including cubs and omegas. Neglect, intentional or otherwise, will be scrutinized more carefully going forward. We will no longer accept tradition as justification for failing to protect those who cannot protect themselves. He looked directly at Lucy. Luna Lucy, your testimony today has prompted this council to review pack welfare protocols. You've started a conversation that is long overdue. We thank you for your courage in speaking truth to power. Tears streamed down Lucy's face, but she managed to speak. Thank you, Council, for seeing them, for valuing them. Don't thank us, Thomas Lord said, a small smile on his weathered face. Thank yourself. You're the one who fought for them. You're the one who refused to let tradition override compassion. That's what a Luna should be. As the council adjourned, Felix pulled Lucy into his arms, lifting her off the ground in a fierce embrace. You did it, he breathed. You actually changed pack law, Lucy. Do you understand how incredible that is? We did it, Lucy corrected, clinging to him. Together, across the chamber, Andrew Elder approached them. His expression was a mix of shame and grudging respect. Luna, Lucy, he said quietly. You were right. About everything. We failed those cubs. I failed them. I let myself believe that survival justified our choices, but... He stopped, his jaw clenching. They deserved better. I'm glad they have you now. Someone who'll actually fight for them. Lucy studied him for a moment, then nodded. Thank you for saying that. An Alpha Elder? Your pack suffered tremendous loss. Give yourself grace for the choices you made under impossible circumstances. Just learn from them. Do better next time. Andrew's eyes widened slightly, as if he hadn't expected forgiveness. I will. I promise. As they left the council building, Lucy felt lighter than she had in weeks. The cubs were officially theirs, officially safe, and she'd stood before the most powerful alphas in the region and made them see that compassion mattered more than tradition. Ready to go tell 5 cubs they're officially Nightshade wolves? Felix asked, grinning. Lucy smiled, bright and genuine and full of hope. More than ready. The cubs' reaction to the news was everything Lucy had hoped for. Sarah cried actual tears, instead of the stoic strength she'd been maintaining. Janny and Terry clung to each other, sobbing with relief. Neva smiled for the first time since Lucy had met her. And little Alfredo threw himself into Lucy's arms, refusing to let go. You really fought for us? Sarah asked, her voice thick with emotion. You really stood up to the council? Of course I did, Lucy said, holding Alfredo close while the other cubs pressed around her. You're worth fighting for, all of you. Don't ever doubt that. No one's ever fought for us before, Janny whispered. Well, that changes now, Felix said firmly, kneeling down to the cubs' level. You're Nightshade wolves. You're family. And in this pack, we protect our family. Always. The cubs looked at him with awe, this powerful alpha, who'd fought for them alongside his Luna. Does this mean we can stay forever? Terry asked tentatively. We don't have to leave? You never have to leave, Lucy promised. This is your home now, for as long as you want it to be. Sarah stepped forward and hugged Lucy fiercely. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing us. For making us matter. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. You've always mattered, Sarah. I just made sure everyone else could see it too. That night, after the cubs were finally settled in their rooms, truly settled, now that they knew they weren't going anywhere, Lucy and Felix stood on the balcony of their bedroom, looking out over Nightshade territory. You changed everything today, Felix said softly, his arm around her waist. Not just for those cubs. For every Omega, every vulnerable wolf in this region. The council is actually going to review pack welfare protocols because of you. Because of us, Lucy corrected again. You stood with me. You gave me the platform to speak. You fought just as hard as I did. But it was your words that changed minds. Your courage. Your refusal to accept that tradition was more important than compassion. Felix turned her to face him, his amber eyes blazing with emotion. I've never been more proud of anyone in my entire life. And I've never been more certain that you're exactly the Luna this pack, this region needs. Lucy cupped his scarred face in her hands. I was terrified. I know. I felt it through the bond. But you did it anyway. That's what courage is, Lucy. Not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. I learned from the best, Lucy said softly. From an alpha who risked everything to fight for an Omega no one else valued. Who saw worth where others saw weakness. Who taught me that I was more than what I'd been told I was. Felix kissed her deep and passionate and full of promise. I love you. Lucy Macias Porter. My mate. My Luna. The strongest person I've ever known. I love you too, Lucy whispered. Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for believing I could be more. You've always been more, Felix said firmly. I just made sure you knew it. As they stood together under the stars, Lucy thought about the girl she'd been in that Silvercrest basement, invisible, worthless, convinced she would never matter. And she thought about the woman she'd become, Luna of the Nightshade Pack, mother figure to 5 precious cubs, someone who'd changed pack law through sheer determination and refusal to accept that compassion was weakness. She'd come so far, and she was only just beginning. Chapter 10. The Omega who became everything. 6 months passed like a dream Lucy kept expecting to wake from. But she didn't wake. This was real. The life she'd built. The family she'd found. The home she'd created from nothing but courage and stubbornness. The Nightshade Pack house had transformed under her guidance. Where there had once been rigid hierarchy and cold efficiency, there was now warmth. Laughter echoed through corridors that had been silent. Cubs played freely in courtyards that had been reserved for warriors. And the Omegas, all 7 of them in Nightshade, walked with their heads high instead of their eyes down. Lucy had made sure of that. You've changed everything, Evelyn told her one morning as they reviewed the pack's monthly reports. When Felix first became alpha, this place was hard, cold, efficient but joyless. Now, she gestured to the window, where pack members gathered for the morning meal, their voices warm with genuine camaraderie. Now it feels like a real home. That's because it is, Lucy said softly. A home shouldn't be about dominance and fear. It should be about safety and belonging. You sound like a Luna, Evelyn said with a smile. Lucy still struggled to accept that title sometimes. But she was learning. Slowly, she was learning that being Luna wasn't about being perfect or strong or dominant. It was about caring fiercely for the people under her protection. About fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. About creating a place where everyone, even Omegas, even orphans, even the broken and discarded, could feel valuable. The 5 cubs had thrived beyond Lucy's wildest hopes. Sarah, fierce and protective as ever, had started training with the pack warriors. Roy Pitts had taken her under his wing, teaching her combat techniques and helping channel her aggression into discipline. She was still small for her age, still healing from trauma, but the fire in her eyes had become determination instead of desperation. I want to be strong like you, Luna Lucy, Sarah had told her last week. You saved us without being physically strong. You saved us with courage. I want to learn how to do that too. Janny and Terry had bonded with the pack's other female cubs, finally experiencing the normal childhood they'd been denied. They giggled during lessons, played games in the courtyard, and slowly stopped flinching every time someone raised their voice. Neva, the quietest of the five, had discovered a talent for healing. She spent hours with Lenore, learning about herbs and medicines, her gentle hands perfect for the delicate work. And Alfredo, sweet little Alfredo, had attached himself to Felix with unwavering devotion. The alpha who'd helped save them had become a father figure, and Felix had embraced the role with a tenderness that made Lucy fall in love with him all over again. Up, Alfredo demanded now, running into the Luna's office where Lucy worked. Uncle Felix promised to show me the new horses. Uncle Felix has alpha duties, Lucy reminded him gently, even as she scooped him into her arms. We can't interrupt. Actually, Uncle Felix has exactly enough time to show his favorite nephew the new horses, Felix said from the doorway, his scarred face split with a genuine smile. Come on, little warrior, let's go. Lucy watched them leave together, this massive, dangerous alpha, and the tiny cub who'd learned to trust again, and her heart felt so full it ached. She'd saved them. But in so many ways they'd saved her too. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Holly entered, her expression carefully neutral in a way that made Lucy immediately suspicious. What's wrong? Lucy asked. Nothing's wrong. But we have visitors. From Silvercrest. Holly paused. Alpha Gordon and his Luna Alicia are here requesting an audience with you and Felix. Lucy's blood went cold. She hadn't thought about Silvercrest in months, hadn't allowed herself to dwell on the pack that had treated her as invisible for 23 years. But now they were here, and Lucy had no idea what they wanted. Tell them I'll meet them in the formal sitting room, Lucy said, proud that her voice remained steady, and send someone to fetch Felix. 20 minutes later, Lucy sat in the formal sitting room, a space she'd redesigned to be less intimidating and more welcoming with Felix at her side and her heart hammering in her chest. Alpha Gordon entered first, looking older than Lucy remembered. Tired. And behind him came Alicia, beautiful as ever, but there was something different about her expression, something that might have been humility. Alpha Gordon, Luna Alicia. Felix's voice was carefully neutral. To what do we owe this visit? Gordon's eyes found Lucy, and to her shock, he immediately lowered his gaze in a gesture of respect. Luna, Lucy. I came to apologize. Silence filled the room. Apologize? Lucy echoed, certain she'd misheard. Yes. Gordon moved forward slowly, his posture unthreatening. For the way Silvercrest treated you. For the way I treated you. For 23 years of making you feel worthless when you were valuable all along. Lucy couldn't speak, couldn't process what she was hearing. I've been following the news from the regional council, Gordon continued. The changes you've implemented. The cubs you saved and fought for. The pack welfare protocols that are being reviewed because of your testimony. He shook his head. You were right there, in my pack, all along. And I was too blind to see it. Why are you telling me this? Lucy asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I was wrong. Because you deserved better. And because... Gordon gestured to Alicia, who stepped forward. I was cruel to you, Alicia said. And Lucy was stunned to see tears in her eyes. I said terrible things. I made you feel small and worthless. And I did it because I was jealous. Jealous? Lucy couldn't hide her disbelief. Of me? Of your kindness. Your resilience. Your ability to remain good, despite how badly you were treated. Alicia's voice cracked. I had everything: beauty, status, an alpha mate, and I was still miserable, bitter, mean. But you had nothing, and you were still kind. Still brave. I hated you for it. Lucy stared at the woman who'd made her life hell for years, searching for deception and finding only genuine remorse. I don't know what to say, Lucy admitted. You don't have to say anything, Gordon said quickly. We're not asking for forgiveness. We don't deserve it. We just wanted you to know that Silvercrest has changed because of you. The Omegas are treated better now. Given real responsibilities, real respect. We're trying to be the pack we should have been all along. Why? Lucy asked. Why change now? Because watching you succeed, watching you become exactly what we'd told you you'd never be, It forced us to question everything we believed about rank and worth and strength. Gordon's expression was earnest. You proved that we were wrong, Lucy. About omegas, about value, about what makes someone worthy of respect. And we're trying to do better. Felix's hand found Lucy's, squeezing gently. Through the bond, she felt his pride and his question. What do you want to do? Lucy took a shaky breath. I spent my whole life in Silvercrest believing I was nothing, that I was worth less than dirt, that I would never be anything more than a basement-dwelling servant who'd die invisible and unmissed. Gordon flinched. But I was wrong, Lucy continued. And you were wrong. My worth was never determined by my rank or my strength or how useful I was. My worth was inherent. It always existed. I just needed someone to help me see it. She looked at Felix, her mate, her alpha, the wolf who'd fought for her when no one else would. Thank you for apologizing, Lucy said to Gordon and Alicia. Thank you for trying to do better. But I don't need your validation anymore. I don't need you to tell me I have value. I already know I do. Gordon nodded slowly. You're an incredible Luna, Lucy. Felix is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him, Lucy corrected. We chose each other. And we're building something here. A pack where everyone matters, regardless of rank. Where omegas aren't invisible. Where cubs are protected. Where compassion matters more than tradition. That's what I hope to hear, Gordon said with a small smile. Because there's another reason I came. The Regional Council is implementing those new pack welfare protocols. They want someone to oversee the process, to ensure packs are actually following through on reforms. They asked me who should do it, and I recommended you. Lucy's eyes widened. Me? You're the one who started this, Luna Lucy. You're the one who had the courage to challenge centuries of tradition. Who better to ensure that change actually happens? Felix's grip on her hand tightened, and through the bond she felt his surge of pride. That would mean traveling to different packs, Lucy said slowly, inspecting their treatment of vulnerable members, holding alphas accountable. Yes, it would be a significant responsibility, one that would give you authority over alphas who've been leading for decades. Gordon's expression was serious. It won't be easy. Many will resent you for it. But if anyone can do it, it's you. Lucy looked at Felix. What do you think? I think you'd be brilliant at it, Felix said immediately. And I think it's exactly what you were meant to do. But Lucy, his expression grew concerned. It would mean being away from Nightshade sometimes. Away from the cubs. Away from me. Never for long, Lucy said, her mind already racing with possibilities. And think about what it could mean, Felix. We could actually change how omegas are treated region-wide. We could protect cubs in every pack, not just ours. We could make sure no one else has to grow up feeling worthless. Then do it, Felix said firmly. I'll support you completely. The pack will support you. And when you come home from making the world better, we'll be here waiting. Lucy turned back to Gordon. I accept, on one condition. Name it. Any reforms I implement apply to Silvercrest too. No exceptions. No special treatment because you came here to apologize. Gordon's smile was genuine. I would expect nothing less. You're going to hold us all accountable, Luna Lucy. As you should. After Gordon and Alicia left with promises to formally present the Regional Council's offer within the week, Lucy sat in the formal sitting room with Felix, trying to process everything that had just happened. They apologized, she said, still stunned. After everything, they actually apologized. Because they finally saw what I saw from the beginning, Felix said, pulling her close. That you're extraordinary. That you're exactly what this region needs. I'm terrified, Lucy admitted. Good. That means you understand the weight of what you're taking on. Felix kissed her forehead. But you're not doing it alone. I'll be with you every step of the way, supporting you, believing in you, reminding you how incredible you are whenever you forget. I love you, Lucy whispered. I love you too, my mate, my Luna, my partner in changing the world. 3 months later, Lucy stood before the full Regional Council once again. But this time, she wasn't pleading for 5 orphaned cubs. This time, She was presenting her first comprehensive report on pack welfare reforms across the region. 17 packs have fully implemented new Omega protection protocols, Lucy announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 12 have established dedicated resources for orphaned and vulnerable cubs. 21 have created formal complaint processes for pack members who feel mistreated. And every single pack in this region now has mandatory training on recognizing and preventing negligence. The council alphas listened, with varying expressions, some approving, some grudgingly accepting, a few still skeptical. However, Lucy continued, there are still 3 packs showing resistance to reforms. The Shadowbrook Pack, the Riverside Pack, and the Moonstone Pack have all submitted incomplete reports and shown minimal effort in implementing changes. I recommend formal sanctions until they comply. Lucas Harding nodded. Your recommendations will be taken under advisement, Luna Lucy. Your work over these past months has been exemplary. You've accomplished more in 3 months than we would have in 3 years. Because I know what it's like to be invisible, Lucy said simply, and I refuse to let anyone else experience what I experienced. Every wolf deserves to be seen, to be valued, to matter. After the council session ended, Thomas Lord approached her with a thoughtful expression. You know, he said, when Felix first brought you to that custody hearing, I thought you were naive, idealistic, too emotional to understand pack politics. He smiled. I was wrong. You're not naive. You're revolutionary. And you're exactly what this region has needed for a very long time. I'm just doing what needs to be done, Lucy said. No, you're doing what everyone else was too cowardly or comfortable to do. You're challenging the status quo, holding the powerful accountable, giving voice to those who've been silenced. Thomas's expression was respectful. That's not just doing what needs to be done, Luna Lucy. That's leadership. Lucy returned to Nightshade territory that evening to find Felix waiting for her at the pack house entrance, Alfredo bouncing excitedly beside him. Luna Lucy. Alfredo launched himself at her. Sarah won her first sparring match, and Neva helped healer Lenore save a wounded warrior. And guess what I shifted for the first time? Lucy's eyes widened. You shifted? Alfredo. That's amazing. It was only for a second, the 8-year-old admitted, but Uncle Felix says that counts. He says I'm going to be strong like him someday. You're going to be strong like yourself, Lucy corrected gently, ruffling his hair. That's even better. After Alfredo ran off to tell Tamara about Lucy's return, Felix pulled her into his arms. How did it go? He asked. Good, hard, necessary. Lucy leaned into him, exhausted but satisfied. 3 packs are still resisting, but we'll get them there. It just takes time. You're changing the world, Lucy. One stubborn pack at a time. Felix's voice was warm with pride. I'm so incredibly proud of you. We're changing it, Lucy corrected. All of us. You, me, the cubs, this pack. We're proving that there's a better way. That night, after dinner with the cubs who'd insisted on hearing every detail of Lucy's council presentation, Lucy and Felix stood on their balcony once again, looking out over Nightshade territory. Do you remember, Felix said softly, that first night in Silvercrest, when I saw you in that dining room, trying so hard to be invisible? I remember thinking you were crazy for looking at me, Lucy admitted. I knew, Felix said. The moment I saw you, I knew. You were exactly what I'd been searching for. What this pack needed. What I needed. He turned her to face him. You've exceeded every expectation, Lucy. You've become more than I ever imagined, and I get to spend the rest of my life watching you continue to amaze me. Lucy cupped his scarred face, this alpha, who'd seen her when she was invisible, who'd fought for her when she was worthless, who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she said. You gave me the platform, the support, the belief that I could be more. You saved me, Felix. No, Felix said firmly. You saved yourself. I just made sure you knew you were worth saving. Behind them, the sounds of the pack settling in for the night drifted up, children laughing, adults talking, the comfortable noises of a family at peace. Their family, the one they'd built together from broken pieces and stubborn hope. What happens next? Lucy asked. Felix smiled. Whatever you want. You're Luna of the Nightshade Pack. You're the regional council's welfare advocate. You're mother to 5 cubs who adore you. You're changing pack culture across the entire region. What don't you want to do?" Lucy laughed, genuine and free, and filled with a joy she'd never thought she'd experience. "I want to keep fighting. Keep pushing for change. Keep making sure vulnerable wolves are protected." She looked up at him. "I want to keep being the Luna this region needs. The one those cubs need. The one you need." "You're already all of those things," Felix said. "And more. So much more." "Then I want to keep being more," Lucy said firmly. "I want to keep proving that Omegas can be strong. That weakness isn't about rank, it's about giving up. And I'm never giving up, Felix. Not on this pack, not on reform, not on making sure every wolf knows they matter." Felix kissed her, deep and passionate and full of promise. "Then let's keep changing the world together, Luna Lucy. One stubborn, impossible victory at a time." 5 years later, the Nightshade Pack House had grown. Not just in size, though they'd added 2 new wings to accommodate the 15 cubs they'd taken in over the years, orphans, rescues, and vulnerable young wolves that other packs hadn't wanted or couldn't care for properly. It had grown in spirit, in warmth, in the kind of love that couldn't be measured or quantified, but was unmistakable in every corner, every interaction, every moment. Lucy walked through the morning gathering, now heavily pregnant with her and Felix's first biological cub, watching their extended family with a heart that felt perpetually full. Sarah, now 15 and fierce as ever, trained younger cubs in the courtyard, her teaching style firm but patient. She'd become one of the pack's most promising warriors, her courage in battle matched only by her compassion off it. Janny and Terry helped in the pack kitchens, their laughter bright and genuine as they prepared breakfast for over 200 pack members. Neva worked alongside Lenore in the healing rooms, her gentle touch and intuitive understanding making her an invaluable healer in training. And Alfredo, now 13, and showing every sign of becoming a powerful warrior, sat with Felix in the Alpha's office, learning pack management and leadership. "Luna Lucy," a young voice called out. A 7-year-old Omega named Joey McGrath, one of the cubs they'd rescued 2 years ago, ran up to her with a drawing. "I made this for you. It's our family." Lucy took the picture, her eyes filling with tears as she studied it. Joey had drawn the pack house, with stick figures representing every member of their unusual family. At the center stood Lucy and Felix, surrounded by cubs of all ranks and sizes. At the top, in carefully printed letters, Joey had written, "The pack where everyone matters." "It's perfect, Joey," Lucy said, kneeling down with some difficulty to hug him. "Thank you." "You're welcome, Luna Lucy. You're the best Luna ever because you see everybody. Even us Omegas. Especially us Omegas," Lucy thought. That afternoon, Lucy stood before the regional council one final time, not to report on reforms but to receive an honor. "Luna Lucy Macias Porter," Lucas Harding announced formally, "in recognition of your 5 years of dedicated service, your revolutionary reforms, and your unwavering commitment to protecting vulnerable pack members throughout this region, the Regional Council hereby bestows upon you the title of High Luna. You will serve as advisor and advocate not just for our region but for the National Council. Your voice will help shape pack law for generations to come." The chamber erupted in applause, genuine, respectful, hard-won. Lucy stood before them, this council of powerful alphas who had once questioned her worth, and felt nothing but pride. "Thank you," she said. "I accept this honor not for myself, but for every Omega who's been told they're worthless, for every orphaned cub who's been abandoned, for every wolf who's been made to feel invisible. I'll use this platform to make sure their voices are heard, to make sure they're seen, to make sure they know they matter." "You've already done that," Thomas Lord said with genuine warmth. "You've changed everything, Luna Lucy. You've made us all better." "No," Lucy corrected gently. "We've made each other better. That's how it should be." When she returned home that evening, the entire Nightshade Pack had gathered to celebrate. A feast had been prepared, decorations hung, and even the most serious warriors wore smiles. Felix found her in the crowd and pulled her close, his hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. "Hi Luna," he murmured. "My amazing, incredible, revolutionary mate. I'm so proud of you I can barely breathe." "Our cub is going to kick you for making me cry," Lucy warned. but she was smiling through her tears. "Our cub is going to be so proud of their mother," Felix said firmly. "Just like all of our cubs are proud. Just like I'm proud. Just like you should be proud of yourself." Lucy looked around at her family, at the cubs they'd saved and the pack they'd transformed. At the home they'd built from nothing but stubborn determination and fierce love, and felt something settle deep in her chest. She'd spent 23 years believing she was nothing, but she wasn't nothing. She'd never been nothing. She was everything that mattered. Sarah approached them, her expression soft in a way she rarely showed. "Luna, Lucy, I just wanted to say thank you. For fighting for us. For showing us that being different doesn't mean being less. For teaching us that strength comes in lots of forms. You taught me too, Sarah," Lucy said honestly. "You all did. You taught me that family isn't about blood or rank. It's about choosing each other. Every single day." As the celebration continued around them, cubs laughing, adults dancing, the pack united in genuine joy, Felix leaned down to whisper in Lucy's ear, "Do you remember what I told you that first night in Silvercrest, when I said I saw home when I looked at you?" "I remember." "I was right," Felix said, "but it was incomplete. You're not just my home, Lucy. You're everyone's home. Every cub who needed safety, every Omega who needed validation, every wolf who needed to believe they could be more. You created a home for all of us." Lucy turned in his arms, tears streaming freely now. "We created it together." "Together," Felix agreed. "Always together." And as their pack, their family, their home celebrated around them, Lucy Macias Porter, former Omega, current High Luna, protector of the vulnerable and champion of the invisible, allowed herself to feel something she'd never thought possible: complete, absolute, unshakable belonging. She was home, and she was never invisible again. Epilogue. 10 years later, the young Omega stood in front of the regional council, her hands shaking, her eyes down, convinced she would never be enough. "You're asking us to intervene in your pack's internal structure," Lucas Harding said, not unkindly. "That's a significant request." "I know, Council," the girl whispered, "but I've been treated as worthless my entire life. And I read about the reforms, about how things are supposed to be different now. I just want someone to see me." "I see you," a voice said from the back of the chamber. The girl turned to find an older she-wolf approaching, still beautiful despite the gray streaking her dark hair, still graceful despite the weight of years and responsibility. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd earned every ounce of respect she commanded. "Hi Luna, Lucy Macias Porter." "I see you," Lucy repeated, kneeling down to the girl's level. "And I was you, once, invisible, worthless, convinced I would never matter. What happened?" the girl asked, hope flickering in her eyes. Lucy smiled, warm and knowing and full of hard-won wisdom. "Someone fought for me, and then I learned to fight for myself. And then I fought for others who couldn't fight for themselves yet." She took the girl's hands. "And now I'm going to fight for you." "Why?" The question came out broken. "I'm just an Omega." "No," Lucy said firmly. "You're just beginning. And I'm going to make sure you have every chance to become exactly who you're meant to be. Because that's what we do now. We see the invisible. We value the overlooked. We fight for those who've been told they don't matter." The girl's tears fell freely. "Thank you, High Luna. Thank me by being brave," Lucy said. "Thank me by surviving. Thank me by becoming strong enough to fight for the next girl who's told she's worthless. Can you do that?" The girl straightened her shoulders, lifting her chin for the first time. "Yes, High Luna, I can do that." "Good," Lucy said with satisfaction. "Then let's get started." As she addressed the council on the girl's behalf, Lucy felt the familiar surge of purpose that had driven her for the past 15 years. This was her life's work, her calling, her way of making sure no one else had to spend 23 years believing they were nothing. Because everyone was something, everyone mattered, everyone deserved to be seen, and Lucy would spend the rest of her life making sure they were. The pack where everyone matters, written for the wolves who survived being invisible. May you always remember. You are seen. You are valuable. You are enough. What's one thing you wish someone had fought for you the way Felix fought for Lucy?